Thank you. Please, you may have your seats. A very good morning to everyone. And I warmly welcome us to this auspicious event of the annual Women Directors Luncheon 2022. Good morning to the President and Chairman, the Governing Council, IOD Nigeria, Dr. Mrs. E.J. Jidenma, FIOD. A warm round of applause for her, please. Her Excellency, Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun, the First Lady of Ogun State, you're very welcome. Our Chairperson, Women Directors Development Committee, the Otumba herself, Mrs. Debola Oshumbogun, FIOD. You're very welcome, ma'am. Distinguished ladies, presidents of various institutes, directors of blue chip companies, eminent ladies and gentlemen in our midst, I warmly welcome us again this morning. Once again, we are all here for the annual Women's Directors Luncheon 2022. Our theme today is virtually unstoppable. And it's about defining the new inclusive economy. And what does this mean to us? Inclusion is the currency of today. We all need to know how to be relevant in the economy of today, how to earn and how to build wealth for everyone. So today is about capacity building and empowerment. I welcome you to a most engaging session. I will be recognizing a lot of eminent people in our midst as we go on, but we want to be on time and we will pace ourselves. So women, please come along with me today and ensure that we have an engaging session, a contributory session, and at the end of the day, we must all go here lifted. Thank you again for listening. And very quickly, in the order event, I'd like to invite for a welcome address, Otumba Debola Oshibogun, the Chairperson, Women Directors Development Committee. Otumba Debola Oshibogun is a financial services expert with over 40 years working experience across multiple levels, ranging from real estate financing and trusteeship to commercial banking. She earned an MSc degree in banking and finance and a Bachelor of Education degree in education and economics, both from the prestigious University of Ibadan. Debola has considerable board experience at executive and non-executive levels. She was on the board of FBN Holdings PLC till April 2021 and was appointed to the board of Odua Investment Company Limited as an independent non-executive director in 2020 till date. She still serves on the board of Imowo Microfinance Bank as a non-executive board member. She also served as a president of the Mortgage Banking Association of Nigeria. Currently, she is the president of the Consumer Awareness and Financial Enlightenment Initiative, CAFI, a not-for-profit organization. Before retirement, Debola served as managing director of the Cooperative Savings and Loans Limited and Sky Trustees Limited. She is a fellow and past president of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, fellow of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, fellow Nigeria Institute of Management, fellow Association of Enterprise Risk Management, professional and fellow Institute of Directors. I would encourage you to just welcome with me this eminent personality as she gives us the welcome address at this auspicious event. A warm round of applause for Otumba Mrs. Debola Oshibogun. the one and only Otumba, Mrs. Yeah, welcome, ma'am.
Our guest of honor for today, Her Excellency, Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun, wife of the Executive Governor of Ogun State, my President and Chairman of Council, Institute of Directors, Dr. Ije Jidima, FIOD, President, Nigerian British Chamber of Commerce, Mrs. Bisi Adeyemi, President, Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce, Dame Adebola Williams. Our guest speakers, of course, Mrs. Kofo Akikugbe, CEO of Secure ID, Mr. Carl Toriola, CEO, MTN, Nigeria. Our industry specialist, Dr. Mrs. Omobola Johnson, Chairman, Guinness Nigerian PLC, and Non-Executive Director, MTN Nigeria. Of course, our panelists, Mrs. Ola Williams, Country Manager, Microsoft Nigeria and Ghana, Mrs. Temi Giwa Tubosun, CEO, Life Bank, and Mr. Iyoluwa Aboyeji, Founder and General Partner, Future Africa. I shouldn't leave out my esteemed moderator, Mrs. Folake Animumuni. She's also the Global Head, Marketing and Corporate Communications, First Bank of Nigeria. My distinguished past presidents, I can see one of them here. Chief Okunowo is here. Members of the Governing Council of the Institute, I also recognize you too. Alaji TJ Borodo. Members of the Executive Council of the Institute of Directors, quite a number of them are here. Or see Mrs. Oyagbola. Fellows and members of our great institute, icon and captains of industries, gentlemen and ladies of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is with great pleasure and pride that I welcome you all to this auspicious event, the 2022 edition of the Annual Women Directors Luncheon with the theme, Virtually Unstoppable, Defining the New Inclusive Economy. This is a flagship event of Women Directors Development Committee of the Institute of Directors of Nigeria, and it is a major initiative aimed at effectively supporting women in leadership roles in the public and private sectors. Women from diverse walks of life come together to discuss issues about broadening the horizon and involvement of female directors. The luncheon, therefore, is a forum for knowledge sharing and capacity building for female leaders, as well as advocacy forum to continuously propound the importance and imperatives in creating gender inclusive growth as a cornerstone of sustainable development. I am delighted to thank and welcome our keynote speakers, Mrs. Kofo Akikugbe, Mr. Carl Toriola, to this event. Let me also say a big thank you to a thought leader within this space, and that is no other person but Dr. Mrs. Omobola Johnson. She's the chairman of Guinness and my other panelists. We sincerely thank you for honoring our invitation to this auspicious event. I also would like to express my sincere, heartfelt and appreciation to EcoBank Nigeria for hosting us in this beautiful, and I say beautiful, Pan-African Center. Please, let's give it to EcoBank. Of course, to everyone present here physically and those online, we appreciate you all for honoring our invitation. We should be ready to learn, to unlearn, and to relearn at this event. I would also like to appreciate the Governing Council under the leadership of our able President and Chairman of Council, Dr. E.J. Jidima, FIOD, the Executive Committee and members of IOD for their contributions to the Women Directors Development Committee, and most especially for their support in putting this program together. Let me use this opportunity to sincerely thank members of the Women Directors Development Committee of IOD Nigeria, who are on this journey with me to ensure that we continuously work hard in fulfilling the mandate of WDDC. I thank you for your commitment and look forward to your continued contributions to the growth and development of this committee. The Women Directors Development Committee's mandate is to provide the development of women leaders. We are tasked to be at the front line of advocacy programs for female executives, such as to develop, execute, and promote programs that will empower women leaders and enable them to acquire the relevant knowledge and skills to compete effectively in leadership. This program today, therefore, is one of the steps in that direction. We believe that it will add value to every attendee, help female executives to develop their individual capacity, and also make a positive impact in their various endeavors. The world is changing, and there is a need for women leaders to position themselves to meet the new challenges, adapt to the tide, and take charge of their respective constituencies to engender growth and development. The concept of an inclusive economy has provided the right opportunity for leaders to achieve this. The Rockefeller Foundation observed that an inclusive economy is one in which there is expanded opportunity for more broadly shared prosperity, especially for those facing the greatest barriers to achieving their well-being. The new inclusive economy leverages the responsibility and enduring nature of sustainability, as well as the speed, transparency, reach, and affordability of technology. The objective is to create more sustainable and inclusive societies where everyone is given an opportunity to take part to create more sustainable and inclusive society within this space. We each have a responsibility to expand the national and global economy, ensure equal opportunities and participation across genders, with special focus on the economically disadvantaged, especially women. So over the years, women have been exposed to less favorable and social determinants and situations, such as little as no access to health facilities, low-paying job, lower education, or complete illiteracy, confinement to a rural environment with low or non-availability of social amenities, and so many other negative social challenges when compared to their female counterparts. This has primarily been due to societal misconception about women, especially in Africa and Nigeria in particular. Unfortunately, women end up carrying the bulk of the societal responsibility in spite of these limitations. Some of these include maintaining the home, raising children alongside meeting other household obligations, and this has globally contributed to their continued disadvantage. This unfortunate situation still persists in modern times, though in variations to what we had years back. This has created the need to drive women emancipation and empowerment across various global communities, including Nigeria, as an avenue to liberate women and end the gender inequality, which has kept many women from attaining the best in their personal lives and in their career. In recent years, the transformation from the MGD goals to the SDG goals have led to the emergence of a different goal, which is aimed at achieving gender equality and empowerment of women and girls. In furtherance to this, another major SDG indicator supporting attainment of women's empowerment is enhancing the use of enabling technology by women and girls. This is the focus of our discussion today, and I'm very glad that we're all here to participate in this game-changing event aimed at redefining the role of women in Nigeria. There is no doubt in the hearts and minds of every discerning individual that the world is changing, and this is more evident in the events of the last 2 or 3 years with the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic and the attendant needs to adapt to these global challenges in our society and economic lives. Technology, especially ICT, has emerged as a new tool that everyone has to adopt in managing the new normal in the post-COVID-19 world. And women are not exempted from these challenges as we structure our homes, personal lives, careers, and businesses in our bid to overcome and to succeed. Oftentimes, women have to bear the brunt of managing the new normal at the home front and in their work and businesses, especially those in leadership roles. And there is a strong need to profile strategies and action plans that will help them to manage challenges ahead through effective leadership and by leveraging on technology. In 2013, 200 million more men had access to the internet than women. Women use ICT much less frequently and intensely than men. In 2016, the International Telecommunication Unit stated that the percentage of women gaining access to ICT is actually decreasing, with women utilizing ICT 11% less than men in 2013 and 12% less than men in 2016. The most recent 2018 report indicated that the overall proportion of internet usage for women was 12% less than men. It is therefore obvious that information and communication technology have catalyzed communications and networking between and amongst people on a global scale, and especially in the post-COVID-19 era, where different platforms have been developed for businesses and social communications. We therefore need to strongly push for women's active participation in the ICT space through deliberate and direct interventions that will broaden their skills and increase their opportunities. Fortunately, ICT has become the subject of global goals and debates for many decades, and the 1995 World Conference of Women, that is the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, deliberated and advocated for the inclusion of women in the information society in order to fully achieve women's empowerment in connection with ICT. However, there is a need to gain a clearer picture as to the type of technologies being used and required by women. This can give deeper insight into the nature of interventions that women in leadership will need to put in place to facilitate the inclusion of more women in the new technology-driven world of today. This will set the agenda for the action to be taken in the immediate future to facilitate women's inclusion in the ICT space and reducing the invisible digital gender divide. This will require that we frame precise actions that can be taken to achieve our thematic objectives of making women virtually unstoppable and effectively defining the new inclusive economy in both the public and the private sectors. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Women must also position themselves through capacity building to be able to effectively take advantage of the emerging digital economy in Nigeria, which is fast enabling commerce, increasing competition in the economy, propelling growth and economic diversification, and also opening up new opportunities for Nigerians. It is my belief that our deliberation today will throw more light on these opportunities and how women can access and take advantage of them, while profiling advice articulated to influence government policies as regards gender inclusion. To achieve this, women advocacy groups, women in leadership roles, other organizations must collaborate with the government at different levels to address the persistent gender disparities. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, once again, I want to appreciate each and every one of you for joining us either physically or virtually at this event. Thank you very much for listening.
Please, may we have another round of applause for that welcome address by Otumba Mrs. Debola Oshibogun. I think she speaks clearly to why we are here, the role of the Women Directors Development Committee, what they seek to drive, and I hear a few things. Women, we need to position, we need to leverage technology, we need to take advantage, and then those of us that are advantaged, we need to make that platform available for those that are disadvantaged. In short, women, we need to take over. If you're with me, we have another round of applause for her. Thank you very much. I'd like to quickly just recognize the Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, Financial Systems Stability Directorate, in the person of Mrs. Aisha Ahmed, ably represented by Mrs. Eniola Dele-Oshiga, Director, Banking Supervision Department. You're welcome, Madam. I'd also like to recognize the CEO, Chapel Hill Denham, and Chief Investment Officer, Nigeria Infrastructure Debt Fund, Mr. Bolaji Balogun. You're very welcome, sir. In going on quickly, we would now be taking the opening remarks by the President and Chairman, Governing Council, IOD Nigeria, Dr. Mrs. Ije Jidenma, FIOD. A round of applause for her, please. Dr. Ije Jidenma, President and Chairman of the Governing Council, Institute of Directors, Nigeria. She's our chief host of today. Dr. Ije is also the managing partner of Kestria Nigeria. Kestria is the world's largest alliance of boutique retained executive search firms. Dr. Ije is an accomplished management consultant with a PhD in psychology with specialization in psychometrics from the University of Lagos. She has consulted widely for organizations across diverse sectors of the economy, including the financial services sector. She has also consulted for the public sector, international non-governmental organizations, as well as led international joint venture initiatives. Dr. Jidenma has served as non-executive director on several boards, including First Pension Custodian Nigeria Limited and First Bank Nigeria Limited. Earlier in her career, she had worked in operational capacities at the Industrial Training Fund and Pricewater, now PwC, where she was a senior consultant in human resources. She worked in executive capacities as head of human resources, as well as head strategic planning at Merchant Bank of Africa, and served as a senior lecturer at Esut Business School. Dr. Jidenma is a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Management, NIM, and Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, CIPM. She currently serves as a trustee and executive secretary of Godi Jidema Foundation. Can you please put your hands together as I welcome to this podium for the opening remarks, Dr. E.J. Jidema. You're very welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's quite exciting to see all of you gathered here today. No masks, no sanitizers. It's really, really beautiful to see all of you. I must also say it's exciting to see not only the women, but also the men. Can you give a big round of applause to our male partners? Thank you very much. Let me quickly go to my remarks. Permit me to still go through the protocols. Members of the Governing Council of the Institute of Directors, Nigeria, members of the Executive Committee of the Institute of Directors, Nigeria, past presidents, office bearers. I see the immediate past president, Chief Chris Okuno, were here. The first vice president, Alhaji Tijani Borodo. You're all welcome. And other office bearers. Let me start by welcoming Her Excellency, Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun, the First Lady of Ogun State, who is our special guest today. Can you give her a round of applause? And I'm also excited to welcome our keynote speakers in the person of Mrs. Kofo Akinkugbe, CEO Secure ID, in whom we are well pleased, Productivity Award winner. I hope you're on your way to joining IOD. I'm pleased to welcome Mr. Carl Toriola, MIOD, the CEO of MTN Nigeria PLC, and of course, our industry specialist, our board guru, Dr. Mrs. Omobola Johnson, MIOD, Chairman Guinness Nigeria PLC, and the panelists, Mrs. Temi Giwa Tubosun, Mr. Inoluwa Aboyeji, and Mrs. Ola Williams. Thank you very much. And also our own Mrs. Folake Animomoni, MIOD, the Global Head, Marketing and Corporate Communications of First Bank of Nigeria Limited. Fellows and members of our great institute, icons of and captains of industry, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Governing Council of the entire members of the Institute of Directors Nigeria, I'm delighted to welcome you all to the 2022 edition of our annual Women Directors Luncheon. This is a major initiative of the Women Directors Development Committee of the Institute. I am pleased to join the chairman, Otumba Debola Ashibogun, FIOD, and members of the Women Directors Development Committee in welcoming you to this very important event. I appreciate all the efforts the committee has made in ensuring the success of this luncheon. I also acknowledge and appreciate the tremendous efforts they've made in developing our female directors through various strategic and enlightening programs. Let me pause here and express immense gratitude to Mrs. Bola Adeshola, MIOD, the chairman of EcoBank, and her team, who have graciously made their ultramodern center available for our use. Round of applause to her for her. I'm grateful to the other sponsors who have made today's event possible. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Women Directors Luncheon of IOD is organized to provide an avenue for directors and leaders in both the private and public sectors, in particular, women, to discuss contemporary issues of great importance for business, the economy, leadership, and corporate governance. The objective is to inform and empower them to effectively discharge their duties and responsibilities. I'm quite excited that this committee has again successfully organized the annual luncheon today. We could not do this in 2021 and 2020 due to the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic. The world pulled its resources together to tackle this pandemic in a way hitherto unknown. There was the influenza pandemic that took place from 1918 to 1920. I recall vividly my maternal grandfather, Reverend Joel Chidebel, himself an Anglican reverend, always referring to those dark days in his sermon. Estimated deaths, according to Wikipedia, range from 25 million to 50 million, and it can even stretch it to 100 million. So this coronavirus, reared its ugly head towards the end of 2019, and by March 2020, it was actually declared a global pandemic by the World Health Organization, WHO. What is the saving grace of this pandemic? The saving grace is technology and the advances made in science, medicine, manufacturing, and the way we work. That most work continues to take place online from various locations, most of which were homes, was made possible by technology. It accelerated the impact of information communications technology on work. What a paradigm shift. People were not only able to carry on their daily work activities, but we are also able to carry out most of their commercial activities online, human contact free. They shopped for household goods such as groceries unimpeded, and they were delivered to them. At the height of the pandemic, technology redefined the workplace and service delivery, as well as ensured business continuity. At the Institute of Directors of Nigeria, we operated virtually for more than 1 year before transitioning to a hybrid arrangement. Last year, when I was elected the president and chairman of our great institute, I readily chose as my guiding philosophy the quest to build a future-ready institute for our members and for the benefit of our country. It therefore did not come as a surprise that the Women Directors Development Committee would pitch their net with technology. One of the pillars on which this future readiness is hinged is inclusiveness. Inclusiveness is defined as the practice or policy of providing equal access to for opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized. In our own case in IOD, we extended it to include diversity in gender, age, geographical areas, economic sectors, and so on. There's no doubt that diversity is the mother of innovation and creativity. An inclusive environment is one that makes everyone feel valued whilst acknowledging how these differences contribute to the various outcomes. It is heartwarming to know that The need for gender partnership is duly recognized, as that would bring the much needed energy and optimization of talents that are bound. I'm glad to share Hillary Clinton's popular quote that human rights are women's rights and women's rights are human rights. Don't you agree with me? We have two accomplished women in technology and business, Mrs. Kofa Akinkugbe and Dr. Mrs. Omobala Johnson here on the 4th. And also, it is great to have a male perspective as we have Mr. Carl Toriola, the CEO of the leading information communications technology company, also as a key speaker. And of course, we have Mr. Temi Giwatubosu as a panelist. The theme for this year's Luncheon, Virtually Unstoppable, Defining the New Inclusive Economy, could not have come at a better time. Technology is clearly one of the major drivers of inclusiveness and a game changer for businesses as it eliminates barriers and provides spread and opportunity for scale up. Since then, technology has become a major agenda for boards. Our theme today is therefore apt, and we focus on how boards should organize, leverage, finance, and monitor technology and the world of opportunity it creates. The ongoing digital revolution is no doubt transforming economies and driving innovation across all sectors in Nigeria. For Nigeria to achieve its true potential, we need to be empowered with the necessary digital competencies. We now appreciate the need to identify and appreciate access to digital tools, technologies, while operating within a regulatory environment that protects the safety and interests of all stakeholders. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the expansion of the digital economy creates many new economic opportunities. Digital data can be used for development purposes and for solving societal problems, including those related to the Sustainable Development Goals. It also helps improve economic and social outcomes, while also facilitating transactions, networking, and information exchange. This can also be corroborated with data, as the information and communication technology sector is currently one of the fastest growing sectors in the Nigerian economy. Despite the devastating impact of the pandemic on business activities, the sector contributed over 15% of total gross domestic product for the year 2021. The growth of the ICT sector in recent years is an indication that the sector can accelerate the growth and development process of the Nigerian economy if given the required attention. We need to be strategic in identifying and prioritizing digital initiatives that could give us a head start in an increasingly competitive and digitally enabled environment we are currently in. Distinguished audience, we have with us today seasoned professionals and business leaders with decades of experience in their respective sectors. I strongly believe that you will benefit immensely from their reservoir of knowledge. Once again, on behalf of the Governing Council and members of our great institute, I extend my warm appreciation to our highly regarded resource persons for accepting our invitation despite their busy schedule. To all our guests who are here to be members of the Institute, I encourage you all to seize this opportunity today to be part of this great body. I thank our attendees for being part of this luncheon, and I join you to make the best of it. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please may we have another round of applause for the opening remarks made by Dr. Mrs. E.J. Jidenma, the President, Chairman, Governing Council, IOD Nigeria. I think it was very clear. It's just building on the address we had earlier, speaking to global relevance of what the digitally evolving environment is all about and why we as women need to ride on this for development. It's about building competencies in women and taking charge. You know, the right of the women is the right of being empowered, taking those platforms and using them. Once again, a round of applause for her. Thank you. Please, may I ask all those in the overflow and in the areas around the exhibition stand to please keep it down so that we can have a very quiet environment and we can listen properly and have a very engaging session. We will be moving into the goodwill messages, but before then, I'd like to quickly recognize some of the executives from EcoBank. One in particular, we've come all the way from Lome. Please, I'd like to recognize Dr. Bumi Bajomo, PhD, the head corporate banking and Chief Operating Officer, Corporate Investment Bank, Eco Lome, Togo. A warm round of applause for Bumi, please. And also, I'd like to recognize Mr. Kola Adeleke, the ED Corporate Bank, Eco Nigeria, who has ensured all his team have been on ground, helping in all the setup. Another warm round of applause for him, please. Thank you, Mr. Kola. Thank you. I'd like to recognize the former MD EcoBank, Mr. Patrick Adeunton. You're very welcome, sir. And then quickly calling for goodwill message, and we'll be starting, will be the ED for consumer banking for EcoBank, Mrs. Carol Oyediji. You're welcome.
Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Women's Director Luncheon for 2022. Kindly permit me to respectfully stand on all existing protocol, but at the same time, especially recognize the presence of Her Excellency, Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun, First Lady of Ogun State. Now, it's a very important event themed virtually unstoppable, defining the new inclusive economy. Indeed, it's a new era for the female gender because our voices were previously not heard, regardless of how you look at it. And if we consider the value that can be brought about by including women in various strata of society, the possibilities are endless, and it has left the world, or most of the world, just wondering why it didn't happen much earlier than it did. If one looks at some of these benefits and then also looks at the massive possibilities that can happen if you throw in technology into the mix, indeed, we will be virtually unstoppable. Technology is actually available to all women, regardless of what we do. I mean, we could be, in the corporate sector, underpaid employment, or running our own businesses as entrepreneurs. And it can also help advance that theory of the superwoman status, taking care of, both the home front and doing exceptionally well also in the work front. But that's an argument for another day. But what I'm just trying to explain is that we can be a lot more efficient if we just leverage technology to actually do a lot of things that are expected of us. And technology in itself is available in all shapes and forms. So it can be just, using a basic Zoom platform to actually take care of the work front while being physically at home, keeping a line of sight on what is happening on the domestic front. Or it can be using, let's say, a more sophisticated, tool or software. Let's say a woman who's running her business wants to manage her inventory properly. That is also using technology to be more efficient. But we women, we just need to learn to embrace technology a lot more than we're currently doing so that we can be very, very efficient in whatever we choose to do. In EcoBank, we have a female proposition called Elevate, which I think we've displayed already. And it is focused on women-oriented businesses where we have women, significant women on board, significant women in employment, and even companies producing goods for women. And the benefits transcend both financial and non-financial. And of course, we deliver this very strongly on the back of technological solutions. In EcoBank, we're very happy to partner with the women corporate directors. We're very happy to partner with the women corporate directors to run this program. And if you know much about our mission in EcoBank, part of it actually revolves around economic development for the continent, Africa. In Africa, 1 in 4 entrepreneurs is a woman. So the female gender in Africa actually add massive value to the continent. And anything that we see advancing this cause for women, we are happy to support. So I'd like to invite all our distinguished participants to please sit down, relax, and benefit from some of the thought-provoking insights that some of our distinguished speakers will be sharing today. I'm looking to add value to myself from what I hear today. So here's welcoming you again, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Oyedeji, for sharing with us and for speaking to us about Elevate. Once again, thank you. I'd like now to call on the President, Nigeria British Chamber of Commerce, Mrs. Bisi Adeyemi, for her own goodwill message. A round of applause for her, please.
Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun, my president, Dr. Jide Jidema. I bring you warm wishes from the Nigerian British Chamber of Commerce, and I wish you all the best this afternoon. Women's leadership at top levels is on the ascent. As leadership at the top becomes gender balanced and inclusive, this can only portend growth and development for our various organizations and indeed for our nation. To sustain this momentum, I have 3 tips this afternoon, or this afternoon indeed. For the female directors, I will say to you, do an audit, be more deliberate in bringing other women on board. So for instance, you are on 10 boards and you find that you're not able to divide your time equally. You're not able to give beneficial support to those 3 boards. Do an audit, do a periodic audit of those boards. And when you decide that there are some of them that you want to step down on, perhaps you will look to your network and see which woman you can bring on board. Another one is when you get those board opportunities and you've said to yourself that perhaps I'm done. Again, look within your networks. That's what the gentlemen do. They would always look within their networks, first of all, and then present the women. The other thing is to be deliberate. Be deliberate in speaking up when the opportunity comes to appoint another woman. So together, we really can, and indeed will be unstoppable. Have a wonderful lunch.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bisi Adeyemi. Thank you for that short message. And next, I would like to call on the President, Nigeria American Chamber of Commerce, Dame Adebola Williams, for a goodwill message. You're very welcome, ma'am. A warm round of applause for her, please.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and I think what I need to do this morning is to emphasize the ladies, because looking around, the ladies are very much more than the men. Can we give a round of applause to us ladies here? But the men have also come to support us, and they do support us all the time. Thank you. Let me stand on existing protocols, but at the same time, welcome and recognize the wife of Ogun State Governor, as well as the president of the Institute and my friend, the host of today's event. It's a great pleasure for me to be here this morning to support a sister and a friend, as I said before, in the person of Otumba Debola Oshibogun, who is the host of today. I bring you warm greetings from the Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce. And we pride ourselves as the Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce as the first bilateral chamber of commerce in the country. Our aims and objectives are many, but you will indulge me by mentioning just 3 of them. We aim to promote the development of trade, commerce, investment, and industrial technology between the public and private sectors of Nigeria and the United States of America. We also seek to promote and develop economic, cultural, and social interests between Nigeria and the US. And lastly, we also seek to promote and develop contacts, foster mutual understanding, and encourage sound and ethical business relationships between our country and the American business community. I very much love the theme of today's event. We live in a technological world, and we all have to up our game. So what we are here to do, as has been emphasized by others, is a learning event. We're all here to learn and improve and add to our wealth of knowledge. And as the saying goes, there is no end to learning. We continue to learn right until the end. So on behalf of the Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce, I want to welcome us all to today's event and wish all of us a very enjoyable session here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dame Adebola Williams, President, Nigeria American Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for that. And next, I would like to call on the CEO, Chapel E. Denman, and Chief Investment Officer, Nigeria Infrastructure Debt Fund, Mr. Bolaji Balogun, to give us his own goodwill message. He supports us women, so a round of applause for him.
Please allow me stand on the existing protocols. Let me make a couple of acknowledgements. However, I'm still a proud son of Ogun State, and I don't want my First Lady to ask His Excellency to revoke all of my COVs. My dear sister, Her Excellency, the First Lady of Ogun State, Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun, delighted to see you. I must also acknowledge very quickly 3 special women in the room. There's an Egbon of mine, also very, very proud of her as an Ijebu woman, Otumba Debola Oshibogun. Madam President and members of your executive, I must also acknowledge my big sister, Cecilia, who dragged me, and she's one of those people I have no ability to say no to. So I had no choice but to turn up and make sure that I did this. Thank you, Egbon. I was seated next to a very special Egbon of mine as well, Dr. Mrs. Omobola Johnson. She's an exceptional Nigerian, period. I hate to describe her as an exceptional woman. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not a day for long speeches. Firstly, let me say that elevating female directors and pushing for female directors just makes good business sense. If you live in an economy where 51% of our population are women, then running forward without women in governance positions is as simple as you running with one hand or one leg tied behind your back. I'm also very proud of one fact as a firm. Our firm has existed for 6,251 days. To put it into years, just over 17 years. Every single one of those days of those 17 years, we have been more than 50% female employees. Every single one of those 251 days, we have been more than 40% women in leadership positions. We're the only firm in Nigerian financial services today with 3 female managing directors, and I see all 3 of them on a table there. Please stand up. Please stand up. And the one word I'd like to leave everyone with today is about intentionality. The only way that you get women into significant governance positions is by creating a pathway for them from the early stages of management in your firm. But it also means that when we get into significant leadership positions as women and men, we also have a responsibility to keep the door open behind us and to drag many women through that door. And I'm also proud of one fact, and because of that, they've never invited me to sit on another multinational company board. And that was that when I was asked to become chairman of Lafarge Africa PLC, one of the key things I insisted on was to have control around the governance process. And what I subsequently did was to ensure that we appointed 4 women to the board of Lafarge Africa PLC. Till today, that is the largest community of women on the board of any major listed company in this country. And I think that it's something that every single listed company in this country must espouse. I joined that board as a very young man. I was 34 at the time. Dr. Johnson's father was my chairman. There was no woman on the board at that time. He ensured that he put the first woman on the board, and there was only one woman on the board of Lafarge Africa for a very, very long time. I'm therefore, very, very proud to support this event. If I left this stage and I didn't acknowledge 2 men in the audience, I will be in trouble. And I left it for last. One of them is my big Egbon, Otumba Chief Chris Olufunlola Okunowo. immediate past president of the IOD. Very good to see you, Egbon. And the other one, he and I as young men, our waistlines were a lot slimmer. We caused trouble in Nigerian telecoms together. I'm very proud to see my brother and my friend. We both sat on the same bench at one network that used to be called EcoNet Wireless Nigeria many, many years ago. But today he runs what I consider the best company in Nigeria, MTN Nigeria, Mr. Kyle Toriola. God bless you and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much for that. And I had to bring down the mic, you know, those of us we have been lower to the lower level, but we thank God for intentionality. And I think it didn't need to speak too much about that. Everything he shared with us just spoke to the fact that even those of us in this room need to take that message out as we build a platform for women all around us. So be intentional. Right, I would like to quickly read the profile of the First Lady of Ogun State because she's giving us the next goodwill message. We'll try to make this very quick so that we can go into the keynotes immediately. Her Excellency Bamidele Abiodun is a Nigerian businesswoman, philanthropist, and wife of Dapo Abiodun, Governor of Ogun State, Nigeria. She entered into the world of business in the mid-1990s, and she's very passionate about women and children. In June 2019, she was appointed as the United Nations Sustainable Development Champion by the Civil Society Coalition on Sustainable Development. And in 2020, she was appointed the chairperson of Ogun State Management Committee on Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law, VAP. As the First Lady of Ogun State, she has initiated several programs with a focus on social welfare, health, education, poverty reduction, violence against women, and the COVID-19 global pandemic response. She's been linked to several work on special needs in Abeokuta, Ogun State, and she's also presented a commitment to advance the implementation of the Conference on Population and Development, ICPD, the Program of Action at a high-level conference convened in Nairobi, Kenya. On our other programs, there's been so many about Ajoshe Tech Rooms, which is about computer labs for primary schools in Ogun State, in partnership with NTM Nigeria, setting up mobile money agents across the state and providing startup capital as a way of promoting financial inclusion. She's also established an ongoing social safety net program with widows across Ogun State. She's championed the rights of women and girls by providing access to sexual and reproductive health education, free sanitary pads, and personal hygiene kits, among so many. Last of all is the establishment of the Adire Market Week, arguably the largest Adire exhibition in Abeokuta, as an ongoing empowerment program for women operating in the textile industry. Would you put your hands together with me as we welcome the First Lady of Ogun State, Her Excellency, Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun, for our goodwill message. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I acknowledge the President and the Chairman, Governing Council Institute of Directors, Dr. Mrs. E.J. Chidema, FIOD, my big sister, Auntie, Otumba Mrs. Debola Oshibogun, Chairperson, Women Directors Development Committee, Mrs. Carol Oyedeji, Executive Director, EcoBank Nigeria, Mrs. Folake Animoni, Group Head, Marketing and Corporate Communication, First Bank of Nigeria. Mrs. Aisha Mohammed, Deputy Governor, Central Bank of Nigeria, represented by Mrs. Eniola Ladili Oshiga. I will also recognize Cecilia Akintomije, a good friend from way back, my senior in school. Thank you very much for inviting me. The panelists, keynote speakers, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor and my distinct pleasure to be here with you at today's annual Women Directors Luncheon. I would like to start by extending my deep appreciation to the President and Chairman of the Governing Council of the Institute of Directors of Nigeria, the IOD, Dr. Mrs. Ije Jidemma, other members of the Governing Council, and executives and members of the IOD Nigeria for taking the lead in promoting good governance and ethical leadership in corporate Nigeria. Our experiences in the recent years have brought to light more than ever the importance of good leadership practices, as well as gender equality as value adding to all facets of society, including corporate boards. There is absolutely no doubt that the IOD has played a huge role in economic empowerment in Nigeria, especially for women, as we have seen the advancement of women on boards across various sectors and industries. The theme of this year's luncheon is quite apt because in order to ensure the economic gaps that our rapidly changing, technologically driven world brings about are minimized, we all need to be carried along. No one needs to be left behind. Fortunately or unfortunately, the pandemic brought to light vast gaps in inclusion that could significantly pull back our economic development. We may consider this a wake-up call. Bearing this in mind, and then considering the socio-economic upheavals in various parts of the world that have a ripple effect on our economy here in Nigeria, combined with our domestic challenges, we should all be concerned about what the future holds. It is therefore imperative for governments, development organizations, and the private sector to pay keen attention to those who have been left behind in the wave of economic development that has swept the globe in the last decade. The term inclusive economy has become a sort of buzzword in more formal business discussions. Terms such as banking the unbanked and reducing economic equality are quite common in various forums that may have a high level understanding, yet genuinely seek solutions for all of our people. For those of us who work with people in the grassroots, inclusive economy is about the people who make up the majority of our workforce. These people are small to medium-sized business owners who mostly operate in the informal sector. For example, the market woman selling tomatoes and ugu on the roadside, or the tailor in her little shop trying to provide an essential service. Many of these women cannot survive without working 7 days a week, yet they struggle to make ends meet. As inflation rises and the cost of living skyrockets, more people are thrown into poverty, not by their own doing, but by the headwinds in the economy and geopolitics. Women and people with disabilities, unfortunately, suffer the highest economic disadvantages, according to decades-old data, and merely observing the people around us. For example, when we started working in Ogun State through the Ajoshe Foundation, our key aim was to reach these disadvantaged groups and intervene where we could. We have worked with widows, giving out micro grants, and extended credit to SMEs through corporate partners, and more recently started a highly successful mobile money scheme with MTN. All of this is merely a drop in the mighty ocean of areas in our country where support is required for inclusion. I believe that it is time to move the discussion about an inclusive economy from our offices to our people. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, agrees with this point and asserts that people's well-being should be at the center of our agenda. During the course of implementing our initiatives, some of the questions we hear are, how is it financial inclusion for me if all my profits are going into servicing the loan you gave me on a bank account I don't need to open? Am I really participating in the inclusive economy if someone else controls the means of production that can set prices for my raw materials? Who really gains from economic inclusion schemes? Is it the people we are trying to help, or the organization trying to meet its target of 5,000 accounts opened? Now, my question is this: how do we answer these questions? It is indeed not very easy to answer the questions in the way that women that we deal with would really understand. Just a few months ago, we met with a local women's association and informed them that we wanted to introduce them to a bank for an empowerment program. We thought we had done a great job and we were excited. We thought they would be jumping to avoid, because the people at the grassroots may not know about the war in Ukraine, the price of oil, or the CBN's new monetary policy. They also cannot explain why what was 100 naira yesterday is now 300 naira today. To them, it is dollar to Losoki. So we must reduce our portions to make ends meet. Therefore, if we are truly going to be an inclusive economy, financial institutions must know that it is not enough to open a women banking division that with a one-size-fits-all approach for everyone. Development organizations and government should listen more to the people and assess actual needs instead of making assumptions. We have been making an effort to do this in Ogun State, especially since the 2020 COVID-19 spurred concerted efforts at dealing with growing economic equality in our country. Providing grants to the micro level has also seen some success in pulling people literally from the brink of starvation. While we have made some progress, we need more innovation across sectors, industries, and the entire country. What is good for women in Ogun State might not work for women in Jigawa. The solution is not homogeneous. People are different, but there have been some aspirations. People are different, but everybody has the same aspirations, everybody has the same dream. But to at least live fulfilling lives in a place where they call home, that's what most of us want. Women have historically gotten the shorter end of the stick when it comes to economic empowerment. But this dynamic is changing, and I am very, very happy that women are now taking the driver's seat and innovating their way to economic prosperity for all. After all, when you empower a woman, you empower a nation. Thank you very much.
Excellency, that was excellent. Thank you so very much for inspiring us and letting us know that the inclusive game needs to be beaten down and taken to the communities. We need to make sure that it's accessible to all, and people need to understand what's in it for them, and they must not be entrapped by any form of emancipation. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank all of our viewers and our participants that are online. Thank you very much for being there. And I recognize very quickly the former MD of NDIC, Alhaji Umar Ibrahim, is with us online. Also, Our Excellency Olori Eleru Obada, former Deputy Governor. Thank you very much, ma'am, for being there for us. And then right here, I'd like to recognize two non-executive directors of EcoBank Nigeria, Mrs. Taba Peterside. Thank you very much, ma'am, for being here. Thank you. And Mrs. Bimbola Wright. Thank you very much. So we have come to that point where I have to take the back seat. My name is Buki Oluyade, and I've been the MC up to this point. I will be handing over the baton to somebody we call Fam. She was my boss, and I call her the boss of bosses. I don't know how to describe any other thing about that lady. Fam has become an idea in professionalism. Please, to read about her, please just go to page 14 so that we don't spend more time reading. But I'd like to say something. Fam is who you call a friend, an anchor, or a mentor. Take all the three and she will tick the boxes. She's who or call fight against mediocrity, further ahead movements. And she's a faith, aspiration, and meaning person. Please welcome with me Folake Anemumuni, the Global Head, Marketing and Corporate Communications, First Bank of Nigeria Limited. You paid me enough. Actually, she bribed me not to read the proper.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Please permit me to stand on existing protocols, but I will ape and copy what I have observed that I thought works really well. So I will start certainly by recognizing Her Excellency, the First Lady of Ogun State, Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun. Thank you very much for being here with us. The President and Chairman of Governing Council, Dr. Ije Jidemma, FIOD, and Otumba Mrs. Debola Oshibogun. If I were to carry on, there's so many aunties, big sisters, uncles in the room. I see Chief Funlola Okunowo, I see Alhaji Borodo. I would take too much of your time. So without further ado, what we thought we would do is go straight into the first keynote of the day. And it's no other person than Mrs. Kofuakikugbe. I will read very briefly her profile and invite her up here to give her keynote address. Mrs. Kofuakikugbe is a trailblazing entrepreneur of tremendous energy and courage, passionate about innovative technology and committed to changing the narrative on manufacturing and gender perspectives in Africa. She's the founder of Secure ID Limited, where she currently serves as the MD CEO. Secure ID is a MasterCard, Visa, Verve certified smart card personalization bureau and digital technology company, while Secure Card Manufacturing is the first polycarbonate smart card manufacturing plant producing high security identity cards and documents for the banking, telecoms, and public sectors across Africa and beyond. She's also the founder of SID Digital Limited, a digital solutions company that focuses on digital identity, digital payment, and automated fare collection systems. Mrs. Akikugbe is also the founder of Transport Payment Solutions, TPS Limited, which is focused on solutions for transport projects across various transport systems. She sits on the board of a number of local and multinational corporate, philanthropic, and humanitarian organizations, alongside her role as wife and mother of two great young women. There's a lot in between, and I just refer you to page 9 of the brochure, if you have it. Mrs. Kofuakikugbe, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Good afternoon, I'm sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, ladies. Good afternoon, gentlemen. And like everyone is saying, allow me to stand on existing protocol, but just to recognize, of course, Her Excellency, Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun, the First Lady of Ogun State. Thank you for those words of encouragement. and also to thank and recognize the president of the Institute of Directors, Dr. E.J. Jedema, and to also thank the Women's Directors Committee led by Otuba Oshibogun. Cecilia, thank you so much for calling on me and organizing this. And also to recognize my good friend and my Minister for Life, ICT Minister for Life, Dr. Mobola Johnson, a game changer in that particular space. We're a player in the space of ICT, and we know that a lot of the initiatives that are being rolled out now were initiatives that she actually came up with during her tenure. So we remain considerably indebted to you. Thank you, Dr. Mobola Johnson. I have just a few minutes, so I'll be giving the keynote speak here, the keynote speaking. And very interesting topic, virtually unstoppable. We'll be going on talking about, defining the new inclusive economy and using technology as an enabler. So we'll just go through that and talk about the technology advancements over the years. I'll just quickly talk about the common modern technologies. Technology as an enabler for competitiveness. Talking about disruptive innovation mindset for business transformation. Then we'll be talking about strategic incumbents and technology as a game changer from the secure ID point of view. Now, if you can see the screen, I think it's showing somewhere there. Inclusive economy is something that we've all been talking about. And basically, when we're talking about inclusive economy, we're talking about broader participation, stability, sustainability, equitable, and growth. And the imperatives for an inclusive economy is when we see that the economy, people have access to education, there's diversity, there's no discrimination, nobody is excluded, good jobs, access to finance, access to social services, whether it's medicals, whether it's power, whether it's transportation. And that's the sort of economy that we would all love to see. But how does this tie with technology? And in thinking about it, I thought to myself, today I'm speaking to women directors. So it's different from just speaking to, women entrepreneurs or, but women directors, we are responsible for the director and performance of the companies that we sit on the board of. And honestly, technology should be at the front and center of decision-making. You must have a holistic view about the business environment and where it is going. So I'll be coming to that much later. But if you look at someone like Elon Musk is a symbol of innovation and disruption. He is in charge of the direction of his companies, and everything that he produces is a car manufacturer, but technology is an overarching purpose of what he produces. And whatever he does or what the products that you see is driven by technology. You see the products, but technology is the one that drives it. He's a game changer, and yet he's leading that company, whether it's disrupting in the area of automobile with electric cars, or it's disrupting in the area of space, or even disrupting recently in the area of communication. So as women directors, we are responsible for the direction. Technology must sit in the midst of our decision-making. Now, we'll just go straight to the historical review of technology advancements. In the days of the first industrial revolution, when we had steam engines, and steam engines were made from burning coals, and then we went into the 1990s. Just wear my glasses. we went into the 1990s, 1900s, I mean, when we're talking about, production of electricity and mass production. And then in the 1960s, we were looking at the information age, ICT, IT, internet came. And today we're in the fourth industrial revolution, when we're now talking about AI, artificial intelligence, we're talking about distributed ledger, and we're talking about blockchain that sits on the distributed ledger. We're talking about virtual reality. We're talking about augmented reality, and the list goes on. But that is the revolution that we are on now. And it's amazing to see how even the recent innovation that wasn't just so long ago is already being disrupted. And if you look at the screen, you'll find out that even legacy innovation, from cameras to mobile phones, from desktops to Google Maps, from encyclopedia to Wikipedia, from Blockbuster, when you can rent videos, to now Netflix, from taxis to Uber, Lyft. Or are we talking about music? Where in those days we buy CDs, but today everybody is streaming, and that has made an impact, particularly for Nigeria. It has helped to grow our Nigerian music industry, because people all over the world now have access to music very quickly. Or we're talking about car navigation. In those days, you rent a car and they give you a small navigator, but now you have Google Map. So wait a minute, what has happened to all these companies? Where are they? So what, as women directors, what can we do to make that difference? And if we talk about the technology trends today, I mentioned distributed technologies, that's distributed ledger technology. And really that's a trend whereby you have use cases like blockchain, cryptocurrencies, the not so long ago Luncheon that sits on the blockchain that enables us to transact with cryptos on it. Or we're talking about 5G. 5G is the new generation after 4G, which enables faster communication. It empowers IoT, Internet of Things. Internet of Things are when you can actually monitor your inventory. You can have an eSIM in your refrigerator, and that fridge can tell whether it's Jumia, if you bought the fridge from Jumia, that you have only 2 eggs left and you need some more eggs. So there is eSIM sitting on things that you can communicate to. And IoT, 5G enables faster communication. It enables data to move really fast. Or we're talking about augmented reality, or what we call VR, virtual reality. These are the trends that are going on right now. And virtual reality is when you use your VR glasses and you can actually see yourself in a meeting with somebody in Singapore, but it appears that you're all together in the same place. We've moved from 4G to 5G in terms of network, but in terms of internet, we're in the Web 2 stage and we're moving to the Web 3 stage. And that's where talks like metaverse is coming into play. And all of these technologies I've spoken about enables metaverse. Or we're talking about hyper automation, where you're talking about robotic process automation, which a lot of manufacturing companies are using to differentiate themselves. Or you're talking about artificial intelligence, which enables you to take all this data, analyze the data, and that you're able to study the behavior of your customers. And because of that, you're able to create better tailor-made services for them. And then it gives you a competitive advantage over your competitors. And the trend is still going on. And so how does all this tie into inclusiveness? Technology. Unluckily, COVID has accelerated the investment in connecting people for borderless collaboration. Today, you're working for a firm in the United States and you're actually right here in Nigeria. Talent mobility, right now, for those of us that have companies, we're competing with all sorts of companies all over the world for good talents. Talents here are being taken away, they are being, hitched from us. So there's talent mobility. So as someone that is talented, you have the world. You have the world to look at and say, where do I want to show this talent? Remote working has helped, and all of this has brought some level of inclusiveness. Or we look at education as a leveler. There's now virtual learning, so you can attend your dream university and still be somewhere else, but gaining from whatever they are, whatever benefits they're bringing. Or we've talked about IoT, you're talking about artificial intelligence, in terms of inclusiveness. With that, you can have driverless cars that takes care of special needs people, or you have people, I can't remember which country it is, where they have a lot of aged people, but they still like to do things by themselves, and they can be in the car, and that car has an eSIM in it and is driving them, and they're not actually driving it. And all of this brings about inclusiveness. So at that, those old people are still included in the technology. Or we're talking about access to social services, e-governance, electricity, and so on. Now, technology has been a great enabler in empowering companies in various industries. And, industries use this, they adapt their operating models in order to remain competitive. I mean, if we look at the manufacturing industry, they've used a lot of robotic process automation. I mean, in our company, in Secure ID, we have some roles that are quite repetitive, and really you can have a robot do that role for you. And what does it do? It helps you to manage your supply chain. It improves efficiency, it reduces errors. So a lot of companies, we need to begin to embrace technology. So the manufacturing industry use robotic process automation to manage supply chains. Or we talk about the financial services, where they use a lot of artificial intelligence tools to get to know who their customers are, the behavior of their customers. Oh, this client usually goes to this site, so let us offer this sort of service to this particular client. At the end of the day, it helps you to be a lot more competitive. And this goes on from tourism to oil and gas or the professional service. Now, technology advancement will continue to have a significant impact on the way we operate our business. So whether it's using any of the other trend technologies that I had talked about. But at the end of the day, as women directors and the companies, or whether you're directors on the board, or whether you are the managing directors or the founders of the companies or non-executive directors, it is our collective responsibility to ensure that we persuade our company to change before it is too late. Watch out for those early signs. Have a disruptive innovation mindset. When I talk about incumbents, it's okay to be an incumbent, but it's not okay not to be strategic about it, because you can be disrupted. Watch out for those early signs. Public data versus private data. Use private data. Public data, those are data that you will see in industry reports. Private data are data that you get in engaging with your clients, in networking with people, or even new hires. Privately, you get that data, you're able to read the signs. What is going on in my industry? What is my company about to face? And that way, you're more of an active incumbent as opposed to a passive one. Companies that are plugged into their customer, they gain insights that can help them to shape the future. And that's why, a lot of the companies that we look at, or we've spoken about Elon Musk, are where they are today. creating the new, but also transforming the old. That ultimately would achieve strategic congruence between the two. And what I mean by that, when I start talking about secure ID, a couple of years ago, we're about 16, 17 years. I'm not quite as good as Bolaji. They did it in days. I'm going to try and do my calculation. So I'm 6,000 plus days in existence. Couple of years ago, about 5, 6 years ago, we knew that disruption was around the corner. And so what did we do? We asked ourselves, let's disrupt ourselves. And a lot of companies do that. So what did we do? We formed another outfit called SID Digital. I gave it different players that had a different mindset. They're just in another world. And all they're doing is disrupting our main line and disrupting what we do. Whilst they're doing that, at the same time, you need to look at your core. How can you transform what you're already doing to be better so that the two are not strangers to one another? And that's why I'm talking about creating the new, but also transforming the old. And so going to the secure ID story as I end, how technology and how we have used technology as a game changer. We started in 2005 when the idea was birthed, and we kept, backward integrating over the years and always looking at data. A lot of companies have research and development units, but we tend to focus more on the D in R&D, and we don't focus on the R, which is research. Why? Because the R, which is research, probably has a longer gestation period. A lot of companies depend on other companies to do the research for them, and they either copy or steal the idea and do it. But we've got to balance the two. We've got to do the research, and we've got to do the development. And every step we took in backward integrating or moving on, we kept using our private data skills to know when it was time to make that move. And that's what you've seen over the years. And today we have just trained ourselves, and it really has been a culture in having a disruption innovation mindset. Even at the board, at my board, disruption has become a policy. If we're doing this, who can do this differently and who can do this better? Some of the ways we've disrupted ourselves is that we produce cards. We produce cards for the banks, we produce cards for telcos, and we produce cards for the public sector. So in producing cards, SID Digital has come up with tokens. That's what we call digital card tokenizations. So you have a plastic card, but you can also have a digital card. And all of that is within the company. Or we're looking at tickets for rail, tickets for buses. And the way that we have disrupted ourselves is to come up with an automated fare collection, ticketing system. Or you look at identity cards. We've been able to disrupt ourselves by coming up with e-driver's license, digital and smart identity. Or you look at SIM cards and you're able to come up with eSIMs. So these are ways that within the organization, we have been able to disrupt ourselves. And so the question is, what direction are you leading your company? Are you waiting for regulation to disrupt you? Are you waiting for others to disrupt you? Thank you very much.
I do think Mrs. Akikugbe deserves another round of applause. The nuggets were just dropping. It's one of those sessions where if you blink, you miss it, or as you take that spoon to your mouth, you might miss it. But there were so many rich suggestions, solutions, and ideas that she threw out there for us. The key takeaway for me is this: if you're left behind, and if you don't embrace what technology is bringing to us, then you're not present. And if you're not present, you must ask yourself, what are you doing on that board? Why are you responsible for that organization's strategy and direction if you're not able to embrace technology? I loved one of the things she said. She said, technology has to be at the front and center. And I asked myself, what role humanity, what role purpose? And I begin to realize that technology and humanity are one and the same. So if you do not embrace it, you're not embracing humanity. I think let's move on very, very quickly and call on our next keynote speaker. And again, like I say to you, the nuggets are dropping and dropping really fast. So please be sure that even whilst you're eating, you've got your pen in hand or your gadget or your device and you're taking all the points. Our next keynote speaker is Mr. Carl Toriola, Chief Executive Officer, MTN Nigerian PLC. Carl holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Electronic and Electrical Engineering from Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, Nigeria, and a Master of Science degree in Communication Systems from the University of Wales, Swansea, UK. He has also completed several programs at INSEAD, Singapore, Wharton Business School, USA, London Business School, UK, Harvard Business School, USA, and Institute of Management Development, IMD, Switzerland. He's a fellow Nigerian Institute of Engineering, FNSE, and a member Council of Registered Engineers in Nigeria, Coren. He first joined MTN Nigeria as the Chief Technical Officer in 2006, before holding various positions across the MTN Group. He brings over 24 years of experience in distinctive leadership and business expertise from MTN Group Weka region, MTN Cameroon, and prior to MTN, V-Mobile Nigeria, Ericsson Nigeria, and AG Switzerland. Yes, I'm talking about you. Carl rejoined MTN Nigeria from MTN Group, where he served as Vice President, West Central Africa, WECA, with direct operational and profit and loss responsibility for 7 OPCOs: Ivory Coast, Cameroon, Benin, Congo, Brazzaville, Guinea, Liberia, and Bissau. He became Chief Executive Officer of MTN Nigeria in 2021. Mr. Carl Toriola, thank you.
So before I do my introductory comments, I think probably the thing I should be most proud of and should be put there is married for 26 years and father to a 22-year-old Imperial College graduate. So that's probably all that matters. Everyone has started off saying they stand on existing protocols, and then they subsequently recognize everyone. So far be it from me to cause any offense by not recognizing, of course, the guest of honor, Her Excellency, the First Lady of Ogun State, Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun. Also, of course, Otumba Debola Oshibogun, Chairman, FIOD, Mrs. Cecilia Akintumide, the Chairman of the Organizing Committee, Dr. E.J. Jidena, Governing Council of the IOD, the Executives and Management of EcoBank, Dr. Bumi Bajomo, Head Corporate Bank and COO Corporate and Investment Bank. My big sisters, Mrs. Kofaki Kungbe, and the lady in front of whom I'll be standing in about an hour and a half's time. She's chairing a subcommittee of MTN Nigeria board this afternoon, and will determine my bonus sustainability in MTN, amongst many other things. She started using one term on me in recent times, and to make sure she never does, I will call her the Honorable Minister, Dr. Mobola Johnson. My long-term sister, who has been in many, many trenches and battles with me, I can't avoid mentioning you, Mrs. Amina Oyabola, and of course, Bolaji, who has left. Thank God he's gone, because having someone like Bolaji make a speech before you will always make your speech seem very bland. He's an investment banker. He was chief marketing officer of Econet, etc., etc. So I hate making speeches after him. We're here to discuss an inclusive economy and the benefits for everyone. in Nigeria and probably globally. The truth is that growth hasn't trickled down to the most poor and disadvantaged, and it won't until we start to take very deliberate decisions in terms of investing in making our economies more equitable from the bottom up. And Bolaji said it makes absolute good business sense. An inclusive economy combines participation, equity, growth, sustainability, and stability. And it leads to faster and more vigorous economic growth because we have a much greater participation of the population and the labor force. It leads to equal access to more opportunities for the upwardly mobile. Everyone in an economy that's inclusive is valued because everyone can contribute and earn with fair access to resources, and there's a greater resilience in such economies. And building such economies creates sustainability, and sustainability is crucial for many reasons. One of them is today, if you want access to good quality capital today looks at your sustainability and diversity because good quality capital recognizes that companies that focus on these metrics will have superior results going forward. If you don't value half of the population and you don't advance and develop them, you can only grow at half of the rate of your best competitor. But here's the interesting thing. Technology itself, as we see it, it's a machine. It doesn't have prejudice. It doesn't have prejudice against women, against tribes, against the status you are born into society, etc. But the people that influence technology and investment decisions, unfortunately, still have prejudice today. So that's one of the things we need to change in terms of becoming an inclusive economy. Mobile communications, and I have the privilege to lead MTN, is a key driver of making this change that we're speaking to. And in particular, the mobile internet is universally acknowledged as an amazing and enabling tool for social and economic development and inclusion and empowerment. It brings about equity and participation. It brings about sustainability by reshaping societies. And it brings about growth and stability. And mobile telecoms, I think we all have a good idea that in Nigeria, we're contributing in 2020 about 12.45% to the GDP. But mobile communication helps empower people by providing them greater access to information on a non-prejudiced basis, greater access to services, greater access to life-enhancing opportunities like education, health, information, etc. In terms of MTN ourselves, I mean, the story has been told over and over again. We're 70 million subscribers. Half of those are data subscribers. Just before the launch of our mobile money business, which was last week, Thursday, we were 10.7 active mobile money users. But we've created value by paying over 3.5 trillion naira in taxes and levies to various arms of government and investing 23 billion naira in our foundation. And 23 billion naira is generic programs. We have specific dedicated programs, some of which were started by Amina Oyabola, focused on female development only. And we have programs focused on the development of female SMEs in particular. But I'm not here to speak about what MTN has done, but as usual, my marketing team will sneak in 1 or 2 points. I think probably more interesting is about the broader industry and the inclusion of the economy. The reality is in sub-Saharan Africa, women are 7% less likely to own a phone and 15% less likely to have access to the mobile internet. The unconnected, male or female, are more likely to be poorer, less educated, older, and generally tend to be in the rural areas, and there's a disproportionate portion of those that are women and girls. Part of our drive, and there are many, many legs of that, to change that is an acceleration of rural broadband coverage. We're deploying 2,000 sites in this year alone. But again, I want to perhaps maybe not speak so much about the technology, but speak about what it can enable. Technology is actually fast becoming, at least internet connectivity, maybe not technology broadly, is fast becoming a utility. So there's no differentiation either for entrepreneurs, nor for the mobile telecommunications companies themselves. It is the use cases that we can layer on top of technology, the business models, and the life problems that we solve that create value and can transform this economy. And without the diversity to understand the challenges that 51% of the people experience in their day-to-day lives, you will not be able to create those use cases, those business models to transform this economy. So I anticipate that a majority of the growth that's going to come in any economy, but in Nigeria in specific, that will come from new use cases, will come from business models that particularly resolve the daily problems that women face. But let's not allow this to distract from the fact that aside from creating these business opportunities to create diversity, we have an underlying problem in Nigeria, even in MTN Nigeria, specifically around diversity. And that's something that in transforming the economy, we need to fix as well. Our strategic intention is to have by 2030, 50% of women in all levels of the organization. So not just an average ratio, but in all levels. But if you look at, we're in 2022 today, if you actually want to achieve that, it means every new recruitment in the organization, 70% of them have to be women. And as Bolaji mentioned, and I think a few other speakers mentioned, if you are not very deliberate about this, you will never come close to it. So at the end of my speech, I'll suggest what we can do to really ensure that the world around us, the corporate world in Nigeria today, the IOD, can put in place to ensure that these things actually happen. As part of our program, we recruit every year fresh graduates from our Global Graduates Development Program. In 2020, recruited 9 of those were women. Sorry, 2021, recruited 9 of those were women. In 2022, we've just completed the recruitment. 12 out of 13 of those were women. But let's understand, those are the entry levels. So that will make a difference in 15, 20 years. But we still have an imminent problem we need to resolve today. So we focused in 2021, 100% of our most senior management development programs on women. It created a lot of discontent in the men in our organization, particularly the high potential and high talent ones. So this year we've eased up that ratio a little bit, but we still prefer or prefer to women. And 70% to 80% of our management cadre recruitment today is almost exclusively reserved for women, but sometimes you have to accommodate some special instances. Interestingly enough, in our public offer, which closed in January, 76% of the participants that used the digital platform were women. 78% of the new shareholders in MTN Nigeria from the public offer were women. I thought that was incredible and just indicates, and of course I would say so at the helm of MTN Nigeria, but they have a very smart investment sense. So it behoves on all of us to have multiple programs to change the dynamics of every level of our organization, from the board to the entry level. Because promoting gender equality is good policy and it's smart economics. When more women can be productive and fulfill their aspirations as they define it, economies grow. Reducing gender inequality in the labor market could grow the economy by an additional 1.25 to 2.5% in GDP between now and 2025. It accelerates very quickly. Gender diversity is good for women, and when women thrive, societies thrive. So this is part of the objectives that we have set out as part of our sustainability program to really provide a sustainable destination for capital. There are 4 major changes which are happening in the world today. One is technology, and I think no one can have spoken to it better than Mrs. Akingbe. The second is the acceleration of the voice of the youth. The third is an increased focus on sustainability, and we haven't spoken much about the environment today. But the fourth and one of the most important is diversity in our economies. And that really creates superior growth and accelerated growth and sustainability. So my challenge to all of us is, if we want to diversify the economy, in focusing on those four elements, we will make the economy a whole lot more inclusive. But sometimes when I stand up on these podiums for these speeches, I ask myself, why am I invited? Perhaps the better time to invite me will be my final month of this job, when I should be challenged and asked, in your tenure as CEO of MTN Nigeria, what did you do to change the trajectory of the economy, of diversity, of the environment, of sustainability for uplifting youth? And so what I would ask a lot of these things do is really start to hold people to account. The top companies listed in Nigeria today, and if they're not listed, do that as well. And challenge each of them. What have you done to actually contribute in these four segments to make this economy more inclusive? And what is important is not where you stand at today, but the trajectory in which you're going for all of those points. The hard fact is, for analysts that mark up or down our share price, they look at sustainability, which includes all of those things, and they mark us up or mark us down. So inevitably, every company is going to have to move to face these new realities and achieve these new goals. And if they don't, there will be an absence of capital to them. And if they do, they will see superior returns, not because they've marked a check sheet in some report on sustainability, etc., but because the changes that they make within their organizations, within the culture of the organizations, will actually uplift their performance. Thank you very much. It's been a great honor, and I look forward to engaging with all of you later. Thank you.
Did we say or did we say? Who's Mrs. Akitomide? She's somewhere in the room. Oh, there she is. And to the entire team that put this together, I mean, what can we say? We've had Mrs. Akikugbe, and then now we've had Mr. Toriola. I mean, again, the challenge he threw out there across those four segments, ask yourself that question. What are you doing across those four sections? So let's not wait till he finishes his tenure. Right from today, yes, should we be ourselves asking those questions of the boards we sit on, of the organizations that we drive? Thank you very much, Mr. Toriola. I think that was great. I started by saying, Mrs. Akitomide, and the team that put together the speakers that we have today, I saw that lineup and I thought, what a day. I'm excited to bring our very next speaker, the Honorable Minister, our thought challenger, a thought provoker. I remember when I was asked, what's she being called? And I said, to my mind, she's a thought challenger, she's a thought provoker. Yes, she's an expert on boards and so on, but when I think of Mrs. MJ, when I think of the Honorable Minister, when I think of her in her previous life in consulting, when I think of everything that she does, what comes to mind is that one person who challenges thinking and who just drives excellence. Dr. Omobola Johnson is senior partner of TLCom Capital, a venture capital firm with focus on deal flow generation, investments, and value generation in technology companies in sub-Saharan Africa. Before joining TLCom, Omobola was Minister of Communication Technology Nigeria from 2011 to 2015, focusing on the launch and execution of the National Broadband Plan and the support of the Nigerian technology industry, including the pioneering involvement of the government in a local VC fund and a network of startup incubators. Prior to serving in the Nigerian government, she gained over 25 years of consulting experience with Accenture, including 5 years as country managing director, working with companies in a variety of industries, transforming them into more competitive and dynamic organizations. Omobola serves on the board of a number of leading Nigerian and multinational corporations, including MTN Nigeria, and is board chair Guinness Nigeria PLC. She also is the founding chairperson and trustee, Women in Management and Business. Omobola has a bachelor's in electrical and electronic engineering from the University of Manchester, a master's in digital electronics from King's College, London, and a doctorate in business administration from the School of Management of Cranfield University. She's the recipient of the Distinguished Alumni Award from Cranfield University and the Lagos Business School. Please join me as we welcome our thought provoker, our thought challenger for the day. Hello, you hear me? Yes, great. It's working now. So it's a distinct privilege for me to have you here, Mrs. MJ, as I call her, Mrs. Johnson. And for us, what I asked Otumba what she wanted the day to be like. And she said she wanted it to be very interactive. She wanted it to flow. And I said, can we ask her the hard questions? So today, she will be asked the hard questions. It's a great honor and a privilege because we know that she will answer those really tough questions that we have. We will later on be taking some questions from the audience, so please bear in mind as she speaks, listen out and prepare your questions. Mrs. Johnson, great to have you here.
Thank you very much, Fam.
Do you have a few introductory words for us, given everything you've heard today? We've heard from Mrs. Akikugbe, we've heard from Her Excellency, the First Lady, and she already threw out some really tough questions. I really think as IOD, we must answer those questions. She threw out questions around what does it really mean, inclusion for the rural woman, for example. So whilst we know that you were once a minister, you've operated at very, very high levels, we're saying how can inclusion be something that is truly inclusive? How do we make sure that it really counts? Our theme for the day, defining the new inclusive economy. What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you very much, Pam. And let me say thank you very much to the organizers for asking me to be at this event. And I will not stand on any protocol, but what I will say is that, you know, we have to acknowledge royalty when there's royalty in the room. And I want to acknowledge this young man here, what he did to me. He is royalty. This is the son of the Ogusua of Modakeke. So Prince Carl Toriola, royalty is acknowledged. Each time he calls me Honorable Minister, I call him Prince Toriola. But Pam, that's an excellent question because, you know, this is about, you asked me a question about inclusion, but, you know, and it's also a question about, it's also a gathering about technology. I know one of the ways in which we can actually accomplish that inclusion is really through technology. And I'll start off with infrastructure. You know, Carl talked about how, you know, with MTN, they're building 2,000 base stations that will cover the rural areas. And that's what the First Lady of Ogun State was talking about. It's very easy for us to sit here as corporate directors and women in Lagos or the big cities in Nigeria and talk about how technology can change our businesses. But for many people who technology can really change their lives, they don't have access to that technology. And the first thing that you have to do to give them access is the infrastructure. And that infrastructure is fiber, it's base stations, it's satellite to ensure that the woman in Lagos has the same quality of internet, whether it's the speed or the quality or the cost of access, as somebody in Modakeke or somebody in the northernmost regions of Nigeria. And unless and until we do that, we really cannot talk about inclusion because we continue to live in a country that is on 3 or 4 speeds: the speed of Lagos, the speed of Abuja, the speed of Kano, and the speed of the rest of the world. And when I say speed, I mean not so much the speed of the internet, but development speed. So that inclusion is so important. And if I just may say one other thing, the way that I love the examples that Bamidele gave around the fact that many people require, many of us can walk into a bank today, most of us can walk into a bank and we can get kind of loan because we will have some kind of how small it is. Many of the women that are in Nigeria don't have any access to that cap. They have nothing to qualify them for a loan. But what is happening right now is because you have a mobile phone, because they can transact their business over the mobile phone, there's visibility and transparency over how much they earn, what they buy, and what they use it for. And this is simple mobile money. And because of those flows of money that you see, you can actually lend them money. And this is not about lending them hundreds of thousands of naira. This is about lending them 10,000 naira
to be able to buy, the next box of biscuits they're going to use, they're going to sell. So just, that infrastructure is critical, and also building content on that infrastructure to support the kind of things that we need to do for inclusion in rural areas is critically important as well.
I mean, let me take you back very quickly, and very well answered. You've touched on two areas, so the access to finance. But taking you back to when you talked about infrastructure, and you talked about perhaps the barriers around the cost of devices, or the cost of the actual access on the internet. What are the specific policies, strategies? What should we be looking at from a regulatory perspective? Take the subsea cable that landed recently with Google, and the Equano subsea cable that landed recently. What policies should be in place to make sure that it's not just a Lagos or a city center solution, that it's a solution that really drives the inclusion we're looking for?
If I cast my mind back, because you're talking about policy now, if I cast my mind back when I was a policymaker and I superintended a regulator, we had three things that we're focusing on in the ministry then, and those three things are still relevant as I speak today, and that was about 7 years ago. Connect Nigeria was the first one, Connect Nigerians was the second one, and then ICT in government. Now, Connect Nigeria is really what you're talking about, and what are the policies that we need to put in place? I think the first around working with the telcos, then the infrastructure providers, to ensure that we could connect Nigeria, and that means, for instance, right-of-way access. Right-of-way access, because we have to, this is infrastructure. You pick up your mobile phone, and you don't really think about what happens when you use that phone. That phone is the fiber, it's the satellite, it's the base stations. And the kind of policies we needed to put in place then was, first of all, state governments need to look at technology or this infrastructure not as a means of making money, but as a means of getting more people inclusiveness to be economically active, which you can then tax them afterwards. Don't tax the infrastructure, tax what is going to come out of the infrastructure. So that's the first thing that I think governments, both at the national level and the state level, can do. The second thing was really around almost mandating for this infrastructure to be in all the areas around Nigeria. When you look at a map of Nigeria, you see these pockets of very good infrastructure. And again, one of the policy thrusts was around, we have to have connectivity everywhere. So mandating for telcos through the USB fund to actually go build that infrastructure and subsidizing or incentivizing it. I mean, I think the third thing that I would say in terms of the regulatory and the policy, sometimes, governments wants to be the regulator, the policymaker, and the actor. And that's very difficult to do because it will not be a level playing field. And what I was very keen about, I know that continues to happen, is that, you've got to be the regulator, you've got to be the policymaker, you've got to be the policeman or the referee, however you want to call it. And you create that, for want of a better word, is probably overused now, but, you create that enabling environment, making it fair for all players, and then you get out of the way. I think one thing that governments don't do very, particularly the Nigerian government doesn't do very well, is to get out of the way. When you get out of the way, you see what the entrepreneurs would do to create the content that is required for you to actually get the benefit of technology.
I really love that, to get out of the way. I think we need to talk about that more. So, I mean, just talking generally about, ICT potential and using that unleashing that to drive economic benefits. I want to go back again to the issue around the rural women. But we can't do that. We can't talk about rural solutions without talking about the one big thing facing us in our society at the moment, insecurity. How can ICT and how can technology help in facing crisis and disasters in Nigeria and Africa? What can we do? How can we leverage what we know of technology now to drive some of the solutions we need to face the insecurity challenges facing us at the moment?
I think the irritation that is caused us as the government tried to roll out national identity. I think that's probably the biggest things that we have done in this country. Because you can't, in terms of putting in place a security infrastructure and making Nigeria a place for people to work and live and play, you can't do that if you don't know who we are. You just cannot do that. And so, we haven't had a proper census in God knows how many years. So we're extrapolating that we're 200 or we're 300, whatever it is. But if you have an identity number that ties every single Nigerian,
to a number, by their fingerprint, by their mobile phone number, whatever it is, it's easier for you to find the perpetrators of crime. If you use your phone today, I know people don't like it, but the fact that if you're on social media, whatever it is, you think you're anonymous, you're not anonymous. We know, they know exactly where you are and what you're doing. And I think that's the biggest thing that this government has done. And building on that identity infrastructure is how you can then begin to overlay security infrastructure around what people do, where they go, security cameras, all that is built on technology. And I don't think that, beyond the NIN that we've used, I don't think we've done that very well, to use technology as a means of actually securing this country. You go to other places in the world and you see that, you can barely do anything without, identifying yourself. And I think that's probably the most important thing I would say.
Let's segue into your role as a super board guru, as we introduce you. So what advice do you have for boards and board members? It's been said that technology has become like oxygen. And we've said, don't leave technology responsibility to the CTOs or to the CEOs alone. Don't leave it to the specific board member who has the specialist skill. I wonder if you sometimes feel very lonely on boards that you sit on, because everybody assumes that, well, we've got Mrs. Mobola Johnson here, so do we need to take responsibility for technology on the boards? How do you feel about that? And how can you advise us all on how to become the experts to make sure that what Mrs. Akikube said, that technology is at the heart and at the center and the core of the organization, we can all contribute?
I think the answer to that question is really everything that Ms. Akikube said. If you're not thinking about technology in literally every single board meeting, and I'm lucky enough to sit on the board of two technology companies, and I also sit on the board of Guinness Nigeria, which is not a technology company, but technology is key to everything that we do, whether it is in distribution, in marketing, it's key. So when you sit on a board, it's important for you as a woman, and we know we women tend to shy away from technology. It's important for you as a woman to understand what the technology trends are in your particular sector, in the board, on the company in which you sit on the board. But just generally, what's happening? Kofo gave an excellent, what would I call it, technology trends for the uninitiated. These are the things that are happening, and they're affecting every single industry. So you need to get conversant with those, otherwise you won't be of any value on the board. I think the other thing so that's number one. The second thing that Kofo said is that, when you sit on boards today, competition comes from the most unexpected areas because of technology. I mean, who would have thought, as we sit in this room today, that, when the telcos have become banks, the banks have become telcos, it's all sort of merged, it's all merged together. And so the banks today that we're sitting in EcoBank, the EcoBank probably thought that their competitors were First Bank and Axis Bank and the likes. But with the advent of PSPs, MTN, by implication, has become a competitor. And so it's really how does technology change the way that I think about competition? That's one of the things you have to think about. And it's all about disruption, because technology is just a big disruption. So how does it disrupt my mindset? That's what you need to be thinking all the time. The second thing I think about is around communication, because, when you sit on a board, you are, you're part of the PR of the board, and you're part of the way of the company, and you're part of the way the company is actually seen in the eye of the public. With the advent of social media, which is again driven by technology, you're not the only ambassador of that brand. Anybody that has access to that brand is an ambassador of the brand. And therefore, you see things that happen that can't do anything that is wrong, or a customer experience thing that is not palatable, or just it wasn't a good experience. They get on social media, and what it takes for you to actually turn that thing around is huge, because before you know it, it's gone viral. So the third thing I would say is around, when you're on a board, you got to be very, very clear of how you engage your customers, how you engage your distributors, how you engage your people, how you engage any stakeholder in your business. And I think that's one thing that we really need to, that's another thing that we really need to think about. I mean, there are many more, but I'll stop. We don't have a lot of time.
Yes, but I mean, we're not letting you go just yet. And I'm going to come back to the question I was going to ask before, but because you talked about the role on the board, I thought let's get a sense of what the role of board members, people let's get a sense of what you see that the future holds from a technology perspective. And where am I coming from? I'm coming from a sense of what role does ethicism play in how we all take responsibility for the growth of technology. So as we look at artificial intelligence, machine learning, and as we look at everything else around us, so we're hearing about the metaverse. I think I was reading that MTN again, the first in everything, I don't know why they're not called first, whatever, telcos, but anyway, MTN again have already invested in Ubuntu, which is the Africa metaverse. What are your thoughts on what the future holds, specifically from an ethics and an ethicism point of view?
It's a really difficult question because, we talk about, one of the things about Web3 is that there's, like you said, there's public data, there's private, I don't know who said that, public data and private data. And, my data should be private to me, but it's not. When you look at all these different, the big technology platforms, they know everything about you. And it's actually quite scary what they know about you and how they then use what they know about you to actually draw you closer. So, I mean, I think that you're right. There needs to be a certain amount of, and this is where governments come in, and this is what we've been trying to do for the past 2 or 3 years, where there must be some kind of regulation that actually limits what these technology companies can do with your data. There must be ways in which you can actually decide who gets your data and what they do with it, and that goes back to the ethics. And there must be ways in which you can actually make yourself, there must be ways in which you can actually be sure that the things that are on, you can sometimes erase what is on the internet. I think that's what the other thing that was talked about, that, once you have this sort of technology trail, it's there forever, and so there must be ways to do that. So I think in terms of ethics, it's really about data and how they use that data and what they use that data for. And there are governments that are looking at how we can actually regulate these companies, these technology platforms better, to be more responsible in the way that they use that data, and to be less commercial in the way that they actually use other people's data to actually further their businesses.
I mean, I do agree with you. Difficult to answer the question around ethicism generally, but I will not be forgiven if I don't ask the question around investments. I was told to specifically ask, you are an investor, so what are the top 4 things you look for when you consider investments?
So first thing we look at is the market. When we're looking at the company and saying, should we invest in this company? We look at the market the company is in. Is it a big market? Is it a market that that is growing? Is it a market that there are lots of people enough people that have enough money to buy a product or service? So first of all, it's the attractiveness of the market. The second thing we look at is the attractiveness of the company. And to describe that is really around what is the business model of that company to try and address or solve a problem or a challenge for that market. So to summarize, what it's looking at is, what problem are you trying to solve? Is it big enough? And how are you trying to solve that problem? That's the second thing we look at. The third thing we look at is actually the founder of the business. So if you say, okay, it's an attractive market in the sense that it's big, it's growing, we look at the company, you're actually addressing that market or that problem in a way that is sustainable, in a way that makes sense, your business model is good. The third thing we look at is the founder himself or herself. This particular founder, can he build or can she build a team around them to actually take this vision? Is the person visionary, number one? And hopefully he is, because he's trying to build this company. Number two, can she build a team around her that will help to execute that vision? And also, does the person listen? And the fourth thing we look at, which is the most important thing, is it an attractive investment? Because you could tick all those boxes, but at the end of the day, the valuation is too high. You may not be able to make enough money from it. So those are the 4 things that we look at. So if there are any founders out there who are looking to start a company, those are the 4 things that we look at.
So did you hear that, founders? I've asked that question. I'm going to just ask one last question, and then we'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your lunch. So your last word on this discussion to women, or to women as the professionals that they are, as entrepreneurs, as homemakers, as board members. Your last word and your charge to the women in the room.
I think is to recognize that there is a correction that is I think it's to recognize that there is a correction that is happening now. And that correction, we've heard about it in the different discussions around the fact that many companies are very much for diversity. And what this means is that opportunities are being created for women, both in, as Carl mentioned, if companies are deliberately saying we'll have female-only cohorts in this, we promote 50% women. This is an opportunity that women need to take advantage of. We'll have a board that is diversified. And I think the last one I would say to women is that we need to take advantage of this opportunity. There's a correction that is going on, not only in Nigeria, but globally. And if we don't take advantage of this correction in terms of, I think it was a PC that said it, bringing more women on board because there's more acceptability, making sure that you mentor women to get them to the point where they're promotable because there's more acceptability of that. So really taking advantage of the opportunity of the diversity agenda that we see both at the national and the company levels, and ensuring that we use that opportunity to really move the needle when it comes to representation, whether it's in corporate or in government.
Great. Thank you so very much, Mrs. Mobola Johnson. A round of applause for our thought challenger, our thought provoker. And she's done exactly what we thought she would do. She's dropped very many nuggets that we should all take away and think about our role. What we do want, you're enjoying your lunch. There's this thing about ladies who lunch. We do multitask really well. So whilst you're enjoying your lunch, we're saying, keep asking yourself, what is my role? What am I going to do differently as from everything I've heard today and as I leave this room today? So we move on very briskly to the very next session. And this is a session, again, another exciting session where we brought a... Yes. And this is that lineup you've been waiting for. So again, very, very quickly, because I know we've taken most of your afternoon, we're going to invite 3 of our panelists up to the podium to come and sit. Let me start with Mrs. Olatomiwa Williams. Can I please invite you to come up and take a seat here? Ola is currently the country manager, Microsoft Nigeria and Ghana. Prior to that, she was the Digital Transformation and Cloud Solution Director for the Microsoft Middle East and Africa multi-country cluster spanning over 67 countries in Africa and part of Middle East. She's an award-winning business leader with over 22 years in information technology industry, helping organizations leverage the power of technology to achieve their business objectives. She's committed to the cause of seeing more women succeed in information technology field. She supports female-focused initiatives to encourage women and girls in her region to develop interests in information technology, and is a mentor to a couple of aspiring female leaders. A round of applause, Mrs. Olatomiwa Williams. I'll call on the second panelist, Mr. Inyoluwa Aboyeji. Please join us on here, and a round of applause as Inyi joins us. Inyoluwa Aboyeji is the general partner and co-founder of Future Africa, a platform that provides capital, coaching, and community for mission-driven innovators, building an African future where purpose and prosperity is within everyone's reach. Prior to co-founding Future Africa, he served as the Deputy Director General for the Madame Obi Ezekwesili 2019 presidential campaign. He also helped to build Andala and Flutterwave, 2 of Africa's largest and fastest growing technology companies backed by global investors. Inyoluwa, more popularly known as E, holds a bachelor's degree in legal studies from the University of Waterloo and is a World Economic Forum Young Global Leader. He also sits on the board of a number of corporate and non-profit organizations and advises a number of national and subnational governments across Africa on how to support high-growth, innovation-driven enterprises in their domains. A round of applause, please, for Inyoluwa Aboyeji. And finally, last but not the least, we have Temi Giwa-Tubosun, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Life Bank. Please join us, Temi. A round of applause, please, as Temi joins us. Ladies, I know we're enjoying the lunch very much, but I promise you that this session will be explosive. This is the session where really we must scatter this place today. So Temigiwa Tubosun studied international public management from the Middlebury Institute of International Studies. She has over 10 years of health management experience with the Department for International Development, World Health Organization, UNDP, and the Lagos State government. In 2014, the BBC listed her as one of the 100 women changing the world. She was also recognized as an African innovator by Quartz and the World Economic Forum. She's the founder and CEO of LifeBank, Africa's healthcare supply chain engine. The company helps hospitals discover essential medical supplies and delivers them in the right condition and on time. I really like that bit, and on time. Right, so we have our panelists, and I see Buki wants to say something. So ladies and gentlemen, guests are saying they cannot hear, so please keep the conversation down. To say a lot of guests are saying they cannot hear, so please let's keep the noise down. Thank you. So can we just quickly have the photos, because I see that some of our guests are leaving. No, I think, yes, I mean, let's have conversation. I think that's what a gentleman, E. Thank you. He offered to sit at the end because he saw that I'm a very diminutive person and he wanted me to have front seats. I think you might be right, actually, that it might be best if I sit at right, where you're at the moment. Thank you for that. So we're going to throw it open very, very quickly. And we're going to say to LifeBank, please kick off the session. When you got the invitation, what did you plan to come and say to us today?
I think building an inclusive economy is absolutely essential for our country, Nigeria. I think having women participate in technology, having women build technology businesses, having women get investment in building the technology companies they want to build, I think is absolutely important. I recently gave a TED talk around backing women and investing in women. I call it the unusual founders. And that's what I wanted to come and talk about today.
So, unusual founders. Unpack that for us. Unusual because they're women, or unusual because of the solutions that and the interventions that they find themselves?
So, for example, in 2020, I'm going to speak from the perspective of the sector that I'm in, of healthcare. We had about $100 million invested in health tech companies across Africa. And there was only one of those companies, I think about 30 companies that got investment. Only one of those founders was a woman, and she got one of the lowest investment. And I thought that was really fascinating. And guess what? About 70% workforce are women, right? Even when you move away from entrepreneurship and technology, when you look at even the gender pay gap in healthcare is about 28% globally, right? So you have 70% of a particular sector being women, and then there's still, within that sector, a pay gap between women and men, right? They are the minority and the most paid in healthcare. So as somebody who has built and operates a health tech company, building and connecting thousands of hospitals with the blood and the oxygen and the consumables and the medicine and the vaccines that they need to deliver great care, it's important to have that conversation around, first, how do we make sure that our services are inclusive and drives equity? So how do we make sure that the woman in Lagos and the woman in Yobe State gets the same quality care? That's one. But at the same time, how do we make sure that women who are leaders, women who are founders, women who are leaders in the workforce, and how do we ensure that investments also reach women in this sector?
Thanks for that. But let me quickly go over to Ola and take it from the place of competition. We recognize that, you know, technology with its speed and openness, it comes with fierce competition. How are you dealing with that at Microsoft? How are you driving some of the solutions that we see and some of the interventions that have really advanced the pace? How are you managing what this openness brings from a competitive perspective?
Thank you very much. That's a very important question, especially in the context of what we're talking about. Because technology and technology advancement had introduced different dimensions that organizations were not dealing with in the past. And it also introduced a lot of empowerment for everyone to innovate. So as an organization, you need to keep be abreast of technology, drive inclusive as a core priority for your organization. Because if there is less emphasis on inclusion, then the potential to really drive innovation is diminished, and that puts you at a disadvantage. So when thinking about the theme of today, which is virtually unstoppable and discussion around inclusion, it has to be deliberate. I think it was Dr. Johnson that was mentioning that, and a couple of other speakers. So organizations need to be super deliberate around having diversity and inclusion as a board agenda. But looking at inclusion not only from gender perspective, but gender inclusion is really, really critical, is super important. And looking at inclusion also from perspective of what are the potential opportunities out there that is yet untapped. Dr. Johnson started a conversation on inclusion for people that do not have connectivity today. That is an opportunity. So as organization, as Microsoft, we're looking at how do we empower people in underserved communities to have access to connectivity by providing what we call earband technology that uses unused license within the TVY space to provide connectivity to underserved community. But that's not all. There are so many people that have great appetite for creativity, but they don't speak English. They don't, and technology is not English language. Technology is technology. We are also partnering with federal government to translate most of our content in terms of skilling content into local languages, Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo. But much more than that, we're also looking at how do we leverage our voice to speech technology to provide access to people that can't read or write, but have mobile devices, to use their voice as command to do anything that anybody that is able to type on their phone will be able to do. And that drives inclusion of people that can't speak English, or people that have disability that they can't use their hand, but they can use voice. So driving inclusion goes beyond just providing technology, but looking at everyone, no matter who you are, and whatever you are able to do to ensure that you're able to use technology. And that is really important, and that's what our focus. In fact, we have teams that are dedicated to driving inclusive technology, technology for good, technology for everyone. And that's why we also deliberately hire people that have either disability in one form or the other, so that they can also participate in helping us to develop technology for people in that space that is usable for all of them.
That's fantastic. I mean, I think I was going to challenge you earlier on when you said, technology for all. And I was going to say, to what extent really is it inclusive? I'm excited to hear one thing today, that Microsoft has turned their mind to voice and the use of voice to bridge that gap, because we're quite clear that there is a divide. I mean, I think it's something that we've all accepted. And if we're not to make sure that the digital divide widens, We must find local solutions. We must find solutions that really make sure that technology is not about education, as has been said. I think it was Carl that said earlier on that technology has no prejudice, has no gender, has no color, has no, technology is technology. So even harnessing that, again, emphasizes the fact that there's so many opportunities. We all agreed technology has driven opportunities in Nigeria. How would you say that those opportunities have, how have you leveraged those opportunities? How has technology driven your business strategy? And what can we all take away here? So if I was sat on a board of your business, what should I concern myself with that Inyi is thinking of as a founder?
Absolutely.
Ladies, may I please ask? Ladies, may I please ask that we, ladies and gentlemen, may I, isn't that unusual? Ladies and gentlemen, may I please ask that we listen and lower the tone?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I think, I mean, most of the obvious have already been said about the rapid pace of technological development and how much it's impacting our lives. But I think that something else that isn't often discussed as much is technology as a tool for propelling societies towards greater inclusion. And it's not a recent phenomenon. For the longest period of time, if you think about innovations like the microwave, you think about innovations like the washing machine, you find that technological advancement has always kind of bent, and I guess in that way I'm disagreeing slightly with Carl, who is very much Mr. Toriola, who is a big organ, but in that way, technology has sort of been part of the process of curving the larger arc of justice towards more equality and inclusion. There are a few interesting trends that are taking roots about them from three particular perspectives. First, in talent, the second being infrastructure, and the third being policy. On the talent angle, I think one of the biggest trends that is reshaping the entire industry is this concept of flexible work and work from home and talent along those lines. And I think that we're currently in the middle of a little bit of a topsy-turvy moment where we've gone from full-on remote to some sort of hybrid, and we're still trying to find where to settle. But I think in the midst of all of this, you know, if you look at some of the latest research, we're actually seeing that there are gender dynamics in effectiveness between who can work remotely and who can't. Men can't for the most part, and women are doing pretty well when it comes to being more productive without the commutes. And I think that's going to be something that becomes a topic of conversations for boards very soon, which is how can you actually create a more welcoming work environment that is cognizant of some of the particular challenges of being a working woman and a working mother, while at the same time driving the right kind of effectiveness within the organization. So that's on the talent side. There are obviously other issues, you know, whether it's the talent pipeline issues, whether it's the women in leadership issue, which continues to be a big issue, and even more importantly, where accountability around issues of sexual harassment and sexual discrimination in the workplace. And these are issues that boards are dealing with, and issues that there is particularly in our sector a need for more senior women leaders to be able to make the right kind of contributions, because sometimes, you know, with a lot of these things, you know, having that diverse perspective that's in elements of empathy, while at the same time balancing it with the corporate effectiveness that's expected from boards.
I think what you just said now is so very important. I'm going to ask the room one more time. Ladies and gentlemen, please, if we can just keep the noise level down. I think these are really important matters. And I think these are matters that as board members, as people who are leading organizations, we should concern ourselves with. Inyi, can you take that bit again? Because I think that was really, so I wasn't sure whether to even raise that. That was very, very courageous of Inyi to dive straight in, because we all know, and he sat here and he has accepted, and he has just touched on a topic that we know has been in social media recently. I love the way he's dealt with it very elegantly. Please take it again. I think it's important we all hear this.
I'm not sure if I'll be as eloquent on the second try, but I'll try my best. So I'm saying that, you know, there's a lot of wisdom, motherly wisdom, that's being required now, particularly at a stage of evolution in the tech industry, where you have these fast-growing companies and you have this big challenge of sexual harassment and discrimination in the workplace becoming more and more of a very topical issue. And there's a need for some level of balance between the empathy that's required to appropriately handle those situations, but as well as the corporate effectiveness that some fiduciaries require in the handling of those situations. And there's sort of one very famous example is people sometimes forget that Ariana Huffington was actually the major, you know, influence behind changing Uber's culture from one that was pretty accommodating of some of these harmful workplace issues for women. And so without that representation on boards, many of these issues don't get dealt with appropriately, because the good old boys club has no incentive to, you know, to change the issues. But I've spoken a lot, trying to touch on the other things, but I'm just going to lightly say a little bit about infrastructure and policy. And on the infrastructure point, again, there's a lot of conversation around infrastructure from the point of view of critical value for national development. But people out often is the impact of infrastructure on inclusion, right? So, so if you consider, and this is something that needs further measured, but if you consider who the internet actually does help, you find that, you know, oftentimes because women, again, with reference to what we had mentioned, flexible work, there's also an education element where a lot of women are actually tapping into online learning, specifically for the purposes of catching up and being able to access the right kind of educations, particularly in spaces where traditionally they've not been able to access. We had the benefit, which is yet to be published, around how Northern women, and it was incredible to see what kind of education and empowerment women in the North were able to get from WhatsApp, which is a one-on-one communication medium, that the education they would not have been able to get if they were required to report into a physical location with all the monitoring and so on that would imply. And then the last thing, and so we need to actually fight for infrastructure as an inclusion agenda so that more women actually have access to the internet and they can empower themselves with key information. The policy front, I think we've started to talk about it, and I know that there's a lot of consternation around quotas, but I continue to be an incredible fan of quotas. And I want to share an example or an experience affirm. So, you know, when I was at Andela, we had, I can try and speak up. Okay. When I was at Andela, we realized that on the average, we would get 80% to software developers, men, and then 20% of the applicant women. And obviously, by the time we went through our field process, 20% became 10. Sorry, switch the mics, okay. By the time we went through our filtering process, 20% became 10. And by the time we factored for certain things like my father is not allowing me to come to a male-dominated environment, 10% became 5. So we started to wonder, okay, what could we do to actually move the needle? And what we started to do was every once a month, we had 4 bootcamp class sessions every quarter. One of those sessions was mandated female only. And that greatly improved our numbers. It wasn't 50-50, but I think we got up to 32%. So drawing from that experience, when I started our firm, I was very, very particular about the need to be intentional about including women. And I knew that if we did it the traditional way, we would either resort to tokenism on one extreme, or we would forget about it on the other extreme. So we put a mandate. We actually said, and we've maintained that mandate, we must invest $1 million in women in 2021. And we actually invested $2 million in women in 2021. And what that taught me was that if on the policy side, we actually put in quotas and mandates, companies can rise to the occasion and do the right thing. And that without that, we're really, inclusion is really a blunt instrument, right? When it's voluntary, and that there's perhaps more of a need to drive a mandate conversation in terms of including women at the highest levels of organizations.
I think that's very well said. A firm believer in quotas and with practical examples. You know, we come to these sessions and we have, you know, a lot of conversation, questions that we've prepared beforehand. But I really always like for the guests to be able to engage. And I like the panelists themselves to also be able to engage with the guests. Forget the questions I have, you know, that I have here. What would you like to ask Temi? Or do I go the other way around? Temi, what would you like to ask in Yolua?
Oh, a lot.
A lot. Go ahead. From founder to founder, ask your question.
You know, he and I go a very long way, you know, back in like 2010 when we would argue policy on Twitter. We've both grown up, we're parents now, so the relationship is a bit different. I guess what I will ask you is, you know, when you're looking at deals in your pipeline, how do you ensure that you are expanding that pipeline past your own circles, right? Because it's easier, you know, when one of the things that keep women founder back in terms of fundraising is who's in your circle, right? Who do you get drinks with? You know, I always say deals don't happen at spas, right? And we need to bring it. We want to have deals happen at spas where women spend a lot of time, or hairdressing salon where we spend some time. But you know, deals happen, you know, in bars and.
Why should they always happen in bars?
You know, sorry.
So why should they only ever happen in bars?
Exactly,
Yolua,
that's
tell
the
us.
point.
Why
So
should they happen only in bars?
How do you expand that pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, I have some personal experience to share in that respect, and it's actually a very deep issue. So in meeting that 2 million mandate, we had one weapon. Her name is Adenike Sheriff. So there was third year University of Lagos, you know, not a graduate. And we literally plucked her out of school, put her on online school and said, hey, work closely with me to learn how to invest. And you're in charge of this $1 million. She's like 23. And she was the one who wrote most of the checks, and most of the companies are actually returning. They're raising up rounds and all of that. What am I trying to say? It is impossible for men to make investments in women unbiasedly. And we just have to accept that.
Okay, he's just dropped one. Did you hear that? He's just dropped something hot. Can you repeat that?
It is impossible for men to make investments in women unbiasedly. It's not possible. So the only way to get more women investments is to empower more female fund managers. And the truth is, and this is where the cookie somewhat crumbles, right? If you look at the pipeline of investment managers who have the requisite experience, we don't have enough women on that list. So an organization has to be intentional about actually investing the resources. So if it means, you know, most of the women early in their career will look for very stable jobs. I mean, Adenike is able to take taking a leap of faith by abandoning a cozy bank job or stable career at McKinsey or something like that to jump right into investment. But men have the privilege of taking those sort of risks. So in another 5 to 8 years, when I'm looking for an investment analyst that has some experience, I'm going to see a resume full of men that meet the criteria and maybe a few that are women. So it's actually, you know, what we've done in our firm is that we actually specifically sponsor female investment emerging associates and principals to go to venture capital school. And if it means sometimes we have to pull them out of the traditional university system to be able to do that. Now, that means that we still have a skew because we're still, you know, we're still majority men investments out of our 90% portfolio. But I like to think that we're investing in the future of our future fund management talent that will be able to actually make sure that the investment decisions are made in spas in the next 5 years rather than
in bars. Not to worry, there's a lot of drinking that goes on in spas as well if you're interested in it, so that's fine. I think that's great. I think, again, we're talking about inclusion and we're still talking about ways to make sure we grow the economy in a sustainable way. And what we're saying is that growing the economy in itself and of itself is not all we're asking for. We're saying it has to be inclusive. We're saying that inclusion has to be sustainable. So, I mean, I think valid and very great answer. It's something that we can all be intentional about. What are you sponsoring and how are you growing the pipeline that you require? Thank you so much for that great question.
If I can add one small thing, which can be an action point. The reality is also that it backs in all the way to the capital, where we get capital from. So when we're looking at who supplies us capital, you know, it's typically, you know, large pension funds that are primarily run by men, large financial institutions primarily run by men. And there's actually an incredible opportunity to actually build a solid LP base for women. And there are women managers out there. First Check is a great woman. Auntie is right here. She should raise up her hand. She's also helping raise with Rising Tide. So there are many women that are trying to do this. But I think until we start to see capital from women show up at the table in a strong way to say, we're only going to back mandates. Again, they're very important. Mandates where we're women backing other women. I don't know that the landscape will change fast enough for us to see the right kind of progress.
I think that's a great one to also throw out to IOD. You know, we need to make this landscape change and change faster. We're going to wrap up very soon, but she gets to ask her question. And you can ask any question. Could be to a panelist, could be to anybody in the audience. So audience, you're part of the panel. I didn't tell you that before, but you are.
It's a great privilege to ask this question because I'll direct it directly to the IOD, especially the women chapter. Just to pick on what we've been discussing on inclusion and what Iyi did mention, that we can't remove bias from men, you know, empowering women or allowing that. So there needs to be some level of deliberateness. I want to ask the IOD team, what is IOD doing specifically, especially to drive higher level of more women on board? We have seen a lot of efforts at the entry level. So many organizations are bringing in more women. But based on statistics, we also realize that, yes, more women comes in, but by the time they get to middle managers or to director level, we tend to see more men because, you know, the environment is so-called more favorable to men. So in the spirit of being deliberate, what is IOD doing actively to support more women to come into that board position? Because obviously we need more women.
Give that to our president to answer that question.
Hello, I've been asked to keep it very short. I would say that IOD is doing a lot we are setting up a mentoring scheme so that more experienced directors can mentor others and give them that confidence in terms of being on board. So that role modeling is very, very key. Thank you.
So we're going to wrap this up very quickly. And I'm going to say one last word, starting from you. So the question we have is around what would your charge be? What would your advice be to women on board, to the women in the audience who are on board? Last word.
I'll start by saying, please embrace technology. Sometimes when I speak to leaders within organization and we want to talk technology, the first thing you hear most of the time, not all the time, is go talk to my technology team. It's great, but it is very important that board members, senior executive understand technology, because you know the business better than any technology partner that you are talking to. And the result of technology is to actually create value for your organization. So if you're not involved, if you don't understand the technology and how it's being used in your organization, then you're actually limiting the ability of your technology team to partner appropriately with your technology vendor to drive business value for you. And today, so many technology vendors, OEM partners, they want to speak with business leaders. They understand the business language, and they will want to ensure that their own executive is speaking at the executive level. And I can talk about Microsoft as a vivid example. So please embrace technology. Enjoy talking about technology, because it will really help to differentiate your organization, keep you abreast of trends, and make sure that you are able to be innovative to beat competition as you continue to advance your business. That will be my charge.
Thank you for that charge. And Temi, we've heard many people say today that when women thrive, nations thrive. What would be your last word?
Absolutely. So I think I would just follow what Mrs. Williams said, which is technology. For us at Life Bank, we are inherently a technology company. We have a marketplace that uses touch technology to connect thousands of hospitals to hundreds of vendors for supplies like blood and oxygen. There are three things that we're doing around technology that I think is interesting. We're using blockchain to track blood safety, right? So blockchain is a public ledger, and rather than use it just for cryptocurrency, we can use that same technology to track other marketplaces. So we use it to track the blood supply chain, from blood banks to the screening to when it gets into the body of the patient. We're using IoT, Internet of Things, to track cylinders, oxygen level in cylinders, so that it alerts us when the level of the oxygen in the cylinder is going down. So that's like, and then coupled with data science to get ahead of the demand in hospitals. And for us, we think that I just gave those quick examples. Additionally, talking about inclusion, we're using, we connect hospitals in rural areas with USSD to make requests to us. So even if you don't have access to the internet, if you don't want to use our fancy apps, you can use USSD, *3 something something. You say, I need blood, it's an emergency, or I need oxygen, it's an emergency, and we get to you in 50 minutes or less. So for us, technology is a tool, and I think everybody at the board level, asking your executives and your management about what are the interesting ways, what are the innovative ways they can use technology to drive inclusiveness in their companies. And for founders, if you're a founder, get governance. I cannot, stress it enough. I know it's like eating vegetables. You wanted to be a founder because you wanted to be your own boss, but getting good governance, getting the right board, I think is going to help you in the long run. We've been very lucky at Life Bank to surround ourselves with excellent governance. And yeah, thank you.
Great, great answer there. Well, E, over to you.
I think my co-panelists have said almost everything, but I want to focus on three things that I think the women in this room can do on leaving this room to propel us much faster towards a more inclusive economy. The first thing is we need to actively and intentionally create female entrepreneurs. And the easiest way to do that is by funding them. There are a number of female entrepreneurs in the room who are raising capital. And I think that the more women actually, fund women entrepreneurs, the easier it is. Because, the men are easy to drag along. Once things get to a certain level of traction, we're just seeing dollar signs. At that point, it's an easier conversation. So I think we need more female angels, women angels to back women entrepreneurs. Second of all, we do need more women on technology boards. I know there is a little bit of, it might feel intimidating to preside over a board where you may not necessarily understand their business in as much depth. But the reality is that some of the issues that fast-growing technology companies are dealing with are not technology problems. They require quite a bit of wisdom and empathy around how do you manage challenges with creating a more inclusive workplace. And I can't imagine that anybody would be more qualified than the women in this room. And then finally, as a community, and more broadly, we just need to push for more mandates, more investment mandates that insist on investments in women across funds, more director mandates that insist on women representation on boards and in senior leadership positions. The more we can do that, the faster we'll propel ourselves towards a more inclusive economy.
Great, thank you very, very much. I think for me, I'm fully charged. I like the point that was made about not being afraid to sit on technology boards, because really a lot of the challenges are not necessarily technology challenges. So the next time you're invited to a board that's a technology board, please don't say no, and don't say why you, because if not you, then who? There's a lot you bring to the table in solving problems. Technology is not technology for the sake of technology. Is to solve real problems, is to solve human problems. And I think the women around this room are perfectly qualified to provide solutions to solving the problems we all face. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to my panelists. We were going to take questions before, but we're very mindful of time. They are still in the room, so I would suggest to you, please engage them and ask your questions directly. Let me start by thanking Ola. Thank you so very much. I've learned so many new things that Microsoft is doing. I'm excited for the future for us. Thank you very much, Temi. Hard-hitting question there to Inyi, which was great. And thank you, Inyi, for the courage and the candor you bring to all conversations every single time. Ladies and gentlemen, the panel for today, thank you. I'm going to invite Buki Oluyade back to come and take over from me. Mrs. Buki Oluyade, she's on her way. Yes.
So please just hold on for us a minute. We'll be rounding up shortly. We just want to present some awards and then we'll be taking pictures. The top table, please can the top table and the guest speakers please come up for pictures. Top table, please come forward. The panelists and the speakers, can you please come up for pictures? I think so. on the first recipient of the award, the First Lady of Ogun State, Her Excellency, Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun. Please, a round of applause for her. Please come up stage, ma'am, for the award. Thank you.
It is my honor and privilege to make this presentation on behalf of the Institute of Directors to hardworking and very, very devoted First Lady of Ogun State, the First Lady in whom we are well pleased. So on behalf of the Council of Institute of Directors, I make this presentation to Her Excellency, Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun, in appreciation of her presence today and her role as guest of honor and all that she has been doing for our great country. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
I'd like to call on Mrs. Tabapi Teside to join the president on stage. Mrs. Tabapi Teside, please. I'd like to call on Mrs. Ola Williams for our own award. A round of applause for her, please.
Hello, on behalf of the President of the Institute of Directors, the Council, Executive Committee, I want to present this award and say a very big thank you to Mrs. Williams for joining us today, for her very insightful comments. I know we've all gone away with something that we can take away from her contributions on the panel discussion. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'd like to call on Mrs. Chizo Malize to join the president on the stage to present the next award. Our next recipient is Mrs. Temi Giwatubosun. Please step up for your award, please. Yes.
Thank you so much, Temi Giwatubosun, for the great things you do and for your delivery today. We learned a whole lot and we follow you and connect with your good work. Congratulations.
Call on Mrs. Amaka Andy to join the president on the stage, please. And the next recipient is is Mr. Iyoluwa Aboyeji. Mr. Iyoluwa Aboyeji, please come up stage. Thank you.
I know you are tall.
So we would like to appreciate you, Mr. Aboyeji, for the great insights you provided at today's session and for the amazing job that you do. Keep it up. Thank you very much.
Yes. The next recipient is Mrs. Folake Animumuni, the Group Head Marketing and Corporate Communications, First Bank of Nigeria Limited. Global Head. I stand corrected. Farm. Okay, there she is. Yes, ma'am.
Farm, on behalf of the President and Chairman of Governing Council, this is a token of appreciation for being a role model, moderator at this Women Directors Conference. Thank you for your time. We appreciate this. Congratulations.
Last but not the least, we would like to make a presentation to our able program coordinator today, Mrs. Bukola Oluyadi, Group Head Customer Experience Management at Polaris Bank. May I call on Mrs. Cecilia Akintomade to do this presentation?
Oh, Folake. Oh, she's here.
So my namesake, I am really pleased to give you this plaque to say thank you. Thank you for being part of today. Thank you for taking your time out from your paid assignments to do this pro bono work. And really every time we call on you, you answer. God bless you. Continue to do the good work. Continue to lend us your voice like you have done today. And we present this to you on behalf of the Institute of Directors as well as the Women Directors Development Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So the vote of thanks, there's a reason why there's no name for the vote of thanks, because it's really from a group of people, the Central Organizing Committee. Not all of us are here. Some of us are watching online. Those of us that are here, I'd like to invite the other members of the committee. Mrs. Bimbola Wright. Mrs. Bimbola Wright. Also Mrs. Janet Adetu. Mrs. Janet Adetu. I know it's a photo op moment for everyone. And then Mrs. Ronke Adedeji. Mrs. Ronke Adedeji. And Kenyatta Bankole Olushino. She's not with us. She's at a work retreat. Also Folashade Ali. She is not here. She had a case in court. Yes, she had a case in court in Ekiti.
And then Hajia Rabi Jimeta just became a grandmother, and so she couldn't be here today. So first, I'd like to, all of us, we would like to first say thank you to God, because I think honestly, for all of us, he pulled this through. This is not something that any one of us did. And then we want to say thank you to all our speakers. Our speakers are all extremely busy people, like all of you. And they made time, they prepared, and they made time to be here today. We also want to say thank you to the sponsors. I mean, everyone knows that to bring out money at a time like this, it takes only the grace and the mercy of God. And that is what we saw. I mean, our sponsors, Geregu Power, we spoke to them once. They immediately paid. The same thing, Chapel Hill Denim, we called them. And thank God for women that support women. West Star, Mrs. Mary Ojulari, she was so supportive, instantly gave support. But we cannot say thank you without including EcoBank. EcoBank opened their facilities, this beautiful waterfront facility. And I would like to say thank you to the leadership, management and staff of EcoBank. They have been extremely supportive. I mean, even releasing me, I'm supposed to be in Abidjan at a board meeting, but I was released to be here. So I am very grateful to EcoBank. And I am grateful to each and every single one of you. If we had invited and we had planned and you did not show up, the event will not be successful. So that you gave us your time and that you came, we want to say thank you. And we hope this has been a meaningful engagement and that it's not just going to be a talk shop, but that we're going to leave this place and do something with what we have heard. We have to make our 51% count for something. We cannot be 51% of the population and for nothing, have no voice, have no power. So we're going to make that 51% count. And then I want to thank IOD for making this possible. And the staff of IOD, just amazing people. Some of them have not been sleeping. They've worked round the clock. They've worked Saturdays and Sundays. And I just want to say thank you to them. In particular, there's a young lady, I don't know if she's in the room, Olusheyi Faguyiro. I don't know if Sheyi is in the room, but Sheyi has been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I think I have nearly driven her crazy, but she's accepted it with a smile. So I want to say thank you to Olusheyi. Come over here. You know, this young lady, she left here, I think about 11 last night and drove all the way to Ajao Estate by herself. And she's a mother with children, doing school runs, taking care of her husband and her home, and then taking care of a crazy woman. So, and I want to thank our speakers, from our guest of honor, our keynote speakers, Carl Toriola, Kofuaki Kugbe, also our thought leader and challenger, Mrs. Mobola Johnson, also the panelists, Inyi, Temi, Olatomiwa. We want to say thank you. Madam Moderator, FAM, as we fondly call her, Folake Nimumuni, our MC extraordinaire, my own namesake, Buki Oluyadi, And then this formidable women that are standing here, Mrs. Bimbola Wright, Mrs. Ronke Adedeji, and Mrs. Janet Adetu. And then online, Folashade Ali, she just got out of court, and that's why she couldn't be here. And Henrietta Bankole Olushino, who worked hard on all of the publicity, with a gentleman, Alex Oyebamiji, who is somewhere in the room. I drove him crazy on Sunday, but he took it with a smile. And Henrietta couldn't be here. She's at a work retreat and they didn't release her, but she kept on working. So thank you. And Hajia Rabi, who couldn't be here just because she became a grandmother. Her daughter just had a baby and she was responsible for fundraising. She was responsible for logistics, everything. Mrs. Ronke Adedeji made sure that people were sitting in the right places and saved us from a lot of trouble. And Janet Adetu was responsible for delegate management, making sure delegates got their gifts, making sure they were well taken care of. So thank you very much. Thank you to the press. Thank you to the technical team. Thank you, the sound was good. And then the man who made all of this happen, oh, Mr. DG. Yay. So we want to thank him. Yes.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I believe that this committee has done a wonderful job. So on your behalf, I want to say a very big thank you to each and every one of them. But you know, in Nigeria, we say the reward of what? Good work is what? More work. So I'm using this opportunity to again announce that this committee is going to work on our Women Directors Conference coming up in September. So I look forward to each and every one of you to attend and honor our invitation. Thank you. Congratulations again, Chairman. Congratulations, Bimbo.
I want to have a picture. Picture. Please move it. Madam Shea. Thanks so much for having Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure, one, to say thank you to everyone once again and to declare this session closed. Thank you for your time and please go away with a message of intentionality. Thank you, everyone. Bye.